Let's keep it off the books. Not a secret. It's off the books. Joey Jugs.
Yeah. We are live and direct. It's been a bit, but I am back. It's hard, man, being a business owner and having all this other stuff on my plate, you know. And shout out to today's sponsor, Happy Ending Brand on Instagram. They got some really cool stuff. This is the black hat. It says the last laugh is the loudest. I think this is like, yeah, it's the same thing on the back, man. So again, thank you so much for joining me. Today's going to be an awesome, it's going to be an awesome debate. We're going to go over. When I watched this debate, it was a while ago, and it was really mind blowing. This is a Andrew Wilson versus a pastor named Brandan Robertson. He is a gay pastor, LGBTQ affirming, which is an insane concept to me. So let's go over it. It's going to be awesome. Let's see. And here we go.
Welcome, everybody, to another live Rattlesnake TV debate between Andrew Wilson and Brandan Robertson. If you guys would like to find these gentlemen, their links are all going to be below. A few pre-show notes before we get into it. Don't forget to like the video on your way in. Shows YouTube that this is worthwhile watching. The topic of the debate today is, should the church be accepting of LGBTQ people? There is a poll in the chat right now, guys. So make sure to get to the chat, put your vote in, cast your vote. Very important that we get as many votes as possible so we get an understanding of the breadth of the audience to see where people stand on this issue. After introducing themselves, each debater will get to make an opening statement of up to 7 minutes. We will then get to read out some super chats after the opening statements before getting into open dialogue for around 90 minutes or so, more if we need. At the end, if we have sufficient interest, we will take some callers and you guys can have your chance to ask whatever questions you would like to the debaters. If you would like to call in, message me on Twitter, guys, Jake Rattle SNK. That's Jake Rattle SNK. We'll put that in the chat so you guys have that link. And if you're a real person and if you're not naked when you get onto the stream or something, then you can, by all means, ask a question. As the moderator, I'll only intervene if the debaters are talking over each other too much, or if we need to get back on topic, or if we need clarification on something. At any point, the debaters can appeal to the moderator.
And every debate that I've seen of Jake Rattlesnake moderating, he's done a really good job. I think he's one of my favorite moderators on debates. He doesn't do it too much, but yeah, he's awesome.
Super chats will be put on screen as they come in, unless, of course, they are unbecoming of this civilized debate. $10 and above will be read out after the opening statements and also at the end for the two gents to respond to. We could increase that price depending on the volume of the super chats. Guys, I am not monetizing this debate whilst it is live for your convenience because we don't want the ads popping up and you guys being all behind. But that costs me, so in order to keep that going, I will need my palms greased. So please, guys, get your super chats in and contribute to the grift. And finally, you'll see in the chat that there is a poll up with the prompt. As we said before, get your votes in now. And then at the end,
I'm just sharing this to everybody.
We're going to do the poll again. The idea of the debate is for these gentlemen to put the most convincing argument forward possible and to see how many people they can bring over to their side. We want to be changing minds. So with that, ladies and gentlemen.
And where you guys stand already. So again, this is going to be Andrew Wilson coming from the stance of, I guess, an Orthodox Christian versus a gay pastor. Where do you guys stand on this? Do you guys even think that a pastor can be gay? Like an affirming pastor saying, hey, I'm not going to change how I live. I just don't know if that's even a thing. So, you know, comment below and tell me how you guys feel about this even right from the start, you know.
Let the games begin.
And now, for the thousands in attendance, let's get ready to rumble!
All right, guys. We are here with our debaters. We are going to take some opening statements after these gentlemen both introduce themselves, tell you guys where you can find them, and also a little bit about themselves. Starting with you, Brandan.
Well, hey, yeah, thank you so much, Jake, for having me. And Andrew, so good to meet you finally after watching so many videos.
We got a list and everything.
My name is Brandan Robertson. I'm a pastor and a queer theologian, and you can find all my stuff at queerchristian.org. But For me, today's debate,
I'm telling you, if I go to a church and the pastor comes out with that lisp like that, I'm leaving. I'm leaving. If my pastor has a lisp like that, I'm out.
couldn't be easier for anyone who's familiar
Just
with.
quickly, Brandon, we just want a quick introduction. So I'm going to get Andrew to introduce himself, and then we'll go into opening statements.
Sorry about that. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's my intro, Brandon. So my name is Andrew Wilson. I am the host of the Crucible, popular entertainment channel on YouTube. I'm a political analyst,
My personal favorite of anybody on the internet, Andrew Wilson. Huge fan.
a political satirist, and also I engage in debates all over the world with various people, mostly on politics, not usually Christian apologetics, but occasionally I like to take those on too.
Lovely. All right, Brandon, you have got 7 minutes on the clock, my friend. Let's get into it.
Thank you. Yeah. So as I was saying, today's debate for me couldn't be any easier than, as somebody who's familiar with scripture, morality, and basic human understanding of sexuality and gender. The question of whether queer people belong in the church, to me, seems trivial. It's already answered.
Somebody said, I already hate
people
this.
are already a part of the Church of Christ and have always been. And to begin with, I think it's important to frame this discussion properly. This isn't just about interpreting a few Bible verses. It's actually at the heart of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I think Andrew probably would agree. The gospel, at its heart, from my perspective, is a message of love, liberation, and ultimately salvation through God's inclusive love. Jesus welcomed those on the margins, those who were excluded by religious authority.
It's also, he said love. And it's also like, what's your definition of, like, everybody, it's a very subjective word, especially when people make up their own definition of what love is. You know what I mean? Some people think that love is, kind of affirming feelings and come as you are and acceptance and this kind of stuff. Some other people think that love is like, comes with some accountability and change. And, like, meaning that let's say you have a friend, he's really fat. Is it love to say, I love you as you are and give him a Twix? Or is it love to tell him, yo, you're going to die early. You sweat you when you walk upstairs and it's hard to be around you because you're killing yourself daily. Which one's love?
Authorities. He never asked people about their specific standards of worthiness. Instead, he simply invited people to come and follow him and be transformed. So the question of why we're still debating LGBT people belonging in the church is interesting to me. And let me make this
Facts.
clear. What makes this debate
Facts. I'm going through the messages right now. Like she said, I agree. God's love is also tough love. Like, God's love comes with accountability. You know what I mean? You have the ability to find eternal salvation or eternal damnation. You know what I mean? So yeah, what is love?
challenging isn't the facts or the theology. It's that Andrew and I are beginning from two fundamentally different places. I am a Protestant who rejects the authority of the Catholic Church and the supposed infallibility of any human being, past or present, including myself. I also don't accept evangelical Protestant frameworks of inerrancy for the Bible because I think it's simply not true. What I do believe is that Scripture is inspired, authoritative for our faith, when it's paired with reason, science, tradition, psychology, and experience. And that's where my theology comes alive as a theologian and a scholar. I can confidently say that there's not a single verse in Scripture that condemns loving, same-sex, consensual relationships.
He said, "What the hell is this debate? Should the church discriminate at gays?" I don't think that's what this is about. I don't think that's the debate prompt at all. What the hell is this debate? Should the church discriminate against gays? I don't think the church is discriminate against gays. They allow gays to walk into the door and find salvation as well. They just don't affirm. So I think this is more about should the church affirm homosexuality? I think that's what this is about. LGBTQ in the church, meaning that if you have a pastor that's openly gay, is that a church you'd want to go to? Is that the direction that the church should go to? Because again, that's like the same thing as let's say your pastor was married. Let's say your pastor was married, but he affirmed cheating on his wife. You know what I mean? He affirmed it. He said, "I'm never going to stop cheating on my wife. I'm always going to be into infidelity." And that was his message. Like, he's not going to stop. Is he a good representation of somebody that you would follow as your spiritual father? Meaning that he's affirming sin. From the Christian purview, homosexuality is you know, it's a form of sin. In the Bible, it's considered an abomination, and it's, you know, what we should be doing is we should be rejecting it. And I'm not going to say that people don't stumble. People will continually stumble, but to accept it and say, I'm never going to change this, shows that it might not be coming from the Christian precept, you know?
There's not a single place that the Bible mandates a male-female binary for romantic relationships. And even if it did, the question would be, why? Because there's zero moral harm caused by consensual adult same-sex relationships or by people expressing their authentic gender identities.
Hard swerve, exactly.
Moral logic is clear, the psychological data is clear, and history shows us that Christians have revised their positions on topics like this, including slavery, divorce, and a plethora of other issues over the centuries.
But what's going to happen is he's going to start getting into some of his actual deeper belief systems, and you're going to see how they're antithetical to Christianity as well. That's the reason why he's able to affirm this lifestyle and consider himself a pastor.
Some may argue that the church needs to hold to traditional values, but let's think about what tradition means. If tradition meant preserving outdated practices, the church would still condone slavery. It would still refuse to marry divorced individuals. It would still stand against interracial marriage.
Not true, not true, not true. None of those are true. Because again, it's really depending on how you are interpreting the Bible. That's why I recommend going to one of the traditional early churches, you know, your orthodoxy, because what it is, it's not about your personal interpretation. It's about the people, you know, the people that compiled the Bible, not what you think it means, what they said it means. You know what I mean? And nothing in the Bible kind of affirms slavery. It was an existing thing at that time. Nothing in the Bible said you should have slaves, and that's what he's missing the point on that.
Thankfully, the church has always had the capacity to evolve. I believe we've listened to the Spirit of God.
Yo, hey, what's up, bro?
Science and culture and the lived experiences of people. And so revising tradition, in my opinion, is actually fulfilling it. And let's not forget that a majority of mainline Protestant denominations in the country today are already inclusive of LGBT people. Even Pope Francis himself has moved towards welcoming and blessing LGBT individuals and our love. And as an openly gay pastor who has served in 3 Protestant denominations, I can tell you that being gay has not had an impact on my ability to minister in my faith in Christ. In fact, it strengthens my connection to the gospel, a gospel that has always been, in my opinion, about love, justice, and inclusion. I think the real issue we're debating is fear. Fear that LGBT inclusion threatens the nuclear family, despite zero evidence for such a claim.
It does, though. What do you mean? How is it not? How does that not threaten the nuclear family? Are they having babies and pushing it as a norm? Are more babies being born in a world where we're pushing this as a norm? Like already tons of fallacies in this guy's opening.
Fear that queer Christians will undermine faith, even though we reflect the same diversity and devotion as straight believers. Fear that somehow by embracing LGBT individuals, we will dilute the gospel. I think this message of fear is antithetical to the gospel, and fear doesn't get the last word. Scripture declares that God's love casts out all fear. God's love is not a gatekeeper, measuring or doling out blessings based on whether we fit some narrow mold.
I don't know. God's love is pretty clear cut. Yeah.
It's an abundant, unmeasurable, and unconditional love. And LGBT people don't need to earn their place in the church. We've already are and always have been part of God's family. So my final plea is simply this. It's time for the church to catch up. The Spirit of God is moving.
Time for the church to modernize and catch up to the modern culture. Time for the Bible to be updated. You know what I mean? And be updated for the modern culture, the progressive. Do you think that's, I mean, I don't know if that's what we should be doing. I don't think we should rewrite the Bible in order to affirm people like this.
And the question of LGBT inclusion is not a question at all. It's a call to action, a call to embrace, affirm, and celebrate the beauty of God's diversity revealed in humanity. And so with that, I'm excited to hear from you, Andrew.
That's funny.
All right, Andrew, it is your time. You got 7 minutes on the clock. But guys, just after this, after Andrew's opening statement.
I agree. Listening to this guy is irritating. The lisp it's hard. It's a hard lisp, man.
We will be reading out some super chats. So, Andrew, floor is yours.
Mr. Robertson is an object lesson and a thing I talk about often. The cult which exists in Christianity, I call the cult of be nice. I refer to these people in other ways as well, sowing circles.
The church of nice, not the church of Christ. And that's what, like, he's going to touch on it, but that's what modern Christianity has turned into: niceness, pacifism. And early Christianity had nothing to do with niceness and pacifism. It just didn't. It's, yeah.
Christians is the most notable way in which I set them apart. A sewing circle Christian reduced to simply
Rodney,
a
that's
person
true.
that believes Christian ethics boils down to one main tenet: be nice, based around the culturally relative societal taboos which exist instead of actually following Christian ethics. Mr. Robertson is a product of the sewing circle Christians, all of whom go out of their way to be nice to him, which creates a vampiric relationship or a parasitical relationship between both. The sewing circle Christians get to flout their virtue and talk about how they show tons of love and grace to Mr. Robertson, of which they are actually showing neither. And Mr. Robertson, in turn, gets to use this virtue signaling as a weapon by saying, due to the niceness you show me, I can weaponize your own faith against you. They're both products of each other, which is ironic and sad. Mr. Robertson is, simply put, a subversive. He's here with a specific mission, which is to subvert Christianity, and he takes great joy in doing so. You can see him smiling even right now. His entire history is that of a subversive, log cabin Republican, subversive element in the Republican Party. Don Lemon, unless I get this wrong, and you can correct me right now, wrote a foreword in your book. Is that not correct?
An endorsement, but not a foreword.
I'm so sorry. An endorsement. Saying, quote,
So you already know he's already been backed up by Don Lemon, which Don Lemon does not like Christians. He actually got in trouble for stopping, like, he ran inside of a church openly worshiping, and like ran in with cameras and a bunch of activists and kind of shut down the church. And he actually got in trouble for this. So again, Don Lemon backing up this LGBTQ pastor. It's not a W on that. That's a huge L. I wouldn't even have brought. If I was him, I would have said, nah, let's keep moving.
Brandan Robertson is a fearless and one of the clearest voices for faith and LGBT inclusion. Don Lemon, by the way, who hates Christians like you can't imagine, absolutely loathes them and bashes them every chance he gets. He's an anti-Trumper, Mr. Robertson is, who uses his non-existent faith on behalf of a progressive secularist agenda to advance that secular agenda, and part of that agenda is homosexuality in church. Now, Mr. Robertson, hilariously enough, has a worldview riddled with contradictions.
Let's get into him.
He says he's afraid to come out, but was lobbying for gay Republicans. He says homosexuality is innate and immutable, but claims ancient people had no understanding of sexuality and that sexuality is a 19th century construct. Total contradiction. He believes God can lie, but also claims he received divine revelation from him and knows it's true. He says sin is harm to yourself and others, or God's design.
Facts,
by
Danny.
whose standards do we appeal for harm in his system? It can't be the Bible, as Mr. Robertson says. It is unnecessary to use that as a standard.
Full Diddy. Full Diddy. Never go full Diddy.
For morality. The list is actually endless of contradictions, which make no sense at all. The reason Mr. Robertson essentially is taken seriously at all by at least some people, mostly women, is because of the flowery language he uses.
And let's I want to rewind that, what he just said, mostly women. The reason why the church is so progressive today is because we're in an egalitarian system right now where you might even see women pastors. So remember, women back up this whole church of nice sewing circle Christian idea way more than men. There's a lot more base men saying, nah, we shouldn't have rainbow flying pastors. A lot of the women are the ones that are disagreeing with that.
Love is love. Love between adults shouldn't be restricted, man. Jesus Christ was all about the love, bro. These are masking terms, which Christians in their foolishness of following the cult of be nice actually let him get away with, because they don't want the flack of using what they consider to be vulgar language. It's actually pretty hilarious. Here's what we're actually talking about in plain English so nobody can run from it. Mr. Robertson believes that marriage between men and the consummation thereof is pleasing to God. Consummation to him means
How does he believe this? In the Bible, it describes what marriage is, and it's not between two dudes. So in the Bible, it describes what a marriage is, and it's not between two men. So how is he this is insane.
man sticks his penis into the anus of another man and ejaculates into it.
Oh, what
No sense at all. The reason Mr. Robertson essentially is taken seriously at all by at least some people, mostly women,
good shit,
is
good shit.
because of the flowery language.
Not all
he
women,
uses.
not that woman.
Love is love. Love between adults shouldn't be restricted, man. Jesus Christ was all about the love, bro. These are masking terms, which Christians in their foolishness of following the cult of be nice actually let him get away with because they don't want the flack of using what they consider to be vulgar language. It's actually pretty hilarious. Here's what we're actually talking about in plain English so nobody can run from it. Mr. Robertson believes that marriage between men and the consummation thereof is pleasing to God. Consummation to him means a man sticks his penis into the anus of another man and ejaculates into it.
That's
this,
marriage.
he thinks, is pleasing to God. Further, that pornography is not objectionable, but that it is also pleasing to God when many men put their penis into other men's anuses and ejaculate. That's what we're actually talking about here. Don't look away. That's what we're actually talking about.
That's what we are talking about, because in the Bible, affirming marriage is part of the act of consummation. So part of in the Bible, marriage is part of the act of consummation. And when two men consummate, that's how it's pretty. I don't know if this is pleasing to God. You know what I mean? The act of consummation has the possibility for things like children. You know what I mean? Not AIDS.
Not love between two men in the church, but the acceptance it's pleasing to God to stick your penis into feces. That's what we're talking.
He's going hard already. This is already going hard. Good shit, Andrew. Yo, Logan, nice to see you in the comments, bro. Thank you guys for tuning in. Remember, I'm going to be doing this a little bit. I'm going to be doing this like daily. So if you possibly could, man, share this. It really goes a long way. And also you can always subscribe as well. Make sure you guys are subscribing if you're watching on YouTube. I'm also right now on X, Kick, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook. I'm trying to go on all of them right now. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. But yeah, Andrew's about to take it up a notch.
Talking about. From his view, Jesus rejoices at this. That's what he's actually saying. And that multiple men doing this with each other is what Christ would want. Jesus died on the cross so that men could have orgies. You may think this sounds absurd because
it sounds absurd. It sounds absolutely absurd. What up, cousin?
It does, but it's his actual view. And no, I'm not sugarcoating it. I'll demonstrate it shortly, in fact, when we get into the cross-examination. Now, Mr. Robertson also has a problem with morality. Mr. Robertson has to date never actually established his moral standard except from consensus and intuition. Of course, the glaring contradiction there is that if it's the vast majority of Christian intuition and consensus that LGBTQ churches are a reflection of the will of Satan, he can't object. I intend to fully put Mr. Robertson to the question on his belief.
Oh, he's about to get, this is going to be a wash. This is going, you guys already see where this is going.
Today, and a few things just to respond to my opening. He says, do queer people belong in church? They always have been. Yeah, to repent. They're there to repent, and they're there to be treated for the spiritual sickness which afflicts them, called homosexuality. The heart of the gospel is love, liberation, salvation. It has nothing to do with liberation. That's a new doctrine. This came around during Enlightenment principles, as well he knows. He says that it should be inspired by authority, psychology, and science. Psychology, sir, is not scientific. All right. It's not, that is not science. It's not even a soft science. It's the study of the mind. There's no scientific methodology really utilized in psychology at all, except perhaps for data gathering purposes. He says there's no place for a male-female binary. Well, Paul would disagree. He says there's zero moral harm, but we haven't established a harm principle. He says the tradition means condoning slavery under Christian ethics when it was indeed Christians themselves who were the primary abolitionists of slavery.
Amen.
Openly gay pastors, he says, can serve as ministers. Why? Because he wants to serve as a minister. So with that, I'm actually happy to just kind of yield the rest.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me, Scott. Yeah, thank you guys so much. Please like and subscribe, share, and ring that notification bell. I'm really new to this, you know, and like I said, I'm a business owner. I have tons of other stuff I'm doing, and I'm doing my best to fit this in. This is everything to me. It took a lot of time to build out this new studio and learn how to do all this. I'm really old, so tech isn't my forte.
Rest of my time and dive right into this debate.
All right, gentlemen, I'm going to quickly read out a few super chats. For the ones that I'm not reading out, we have to keep them TOS, guys, but I do appreciate the support. Ryan Slater gifted 5 Rattlesnake TV memberships. The Ghost of Pinochet said, queer pastor, more Protestant heresy, LMAO. Also, hello from the Crucible crew. I'm sure, Brandon, you'll get into that during the debate.
This is just an example of Protestantism. This is where Protestantism eventually goes. You know what I mean? It just keeps getting more and more and more progressive because there is no authority to tell this guy, no, you can't go on that stage and say that. No, you can't do that.
Right. Nick Brown for $10 said, Daddy chill.
Facts,
Ghost of
Logan.
Pinochet for
Facts.
$10 says, yes, the time-honored tradition of man-on-man buggery. Yes, we should totally replace the centering of the nuclear family and its formation for this instead. Brandon, do you have a response to that quickly?
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think it's not an either or in my perspective. So no, we're not replacing one for the other.
Not for president, for king. You know what I mean? For king. Joey Jokes for king. You know what I mean?
Yep. Ryan Slater for $10 says, thanks for not monetizing this, Jake. Super chat for the support, brother. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate that. We want to have this show as free-flowing as possible. Holly for $5 says, gay ad blocker. I missed that one. Made by Jim Bob for $10. Brandon, what's the meaningful difference between brotherly love and homosexuality? If you want to give a quick answer to that one.
Yeah, I just think they're two different types of love. I think the Bible talks about a variety of different kinds of love, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to back up. That's going to be hard to defend.
All right, fellas. Well, I mean,
I don't think, again, I don't know if I've seen any recorded losses of Andrew Wilson either. He is really, really good at what he does. And why he's an inspiration is because he didn't have a background in this. He was a regular guy, working a regular job and started really kind of putting his beliefs to the test and through the fire. And yeah, now he's one of the best debaters on on the internet, which it's really, really inspirational. You know what I mean?
Are you guys comfortable just doing open dialogue, or would you like to do a? Yep, okay. Open dialogue.
Let's do open dialogue. Can we clarify a few terms before we dive into the debate? Just kind of get a few things clarified. I was going through. You have a multitude of videos, and I kind of went over the positions, and I just want to make sure that this is correct. Essentially, you believe that people should strive to act with compassion, empathy towards everybody and kind of all creatures which exist, right?
Yes.
Okay. That there is a struggle, an ongoing struggle for justice, and that needs to prevail, right? Including if it needs to prevail over the law, which Jesus Christ himself did, right?
Yeah.
Okay. One's body is their own, and it's not subject to somebody else, right? And their will.
I would talk about God having some authority and ownership of that too, but yes.
Okay. Freedoms for people should be respected. And you should not in any way unjustly encroach upon other people's freedoms.
Sure.
Okay. Belief should conform to one's best scientific and psychological understanding of the world, and one should take care not to distort scientific facts.
I agree, bro.
Okay. And people are fallible. They make mistakes, and you should do your best to rectify those mistakes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, real quick, I just wanted to show you. I'm going to share my screen here real quick. Jake, can you pull that up for me? Please. Yeah. Can you read the title of that?
Oh, this is going to be
Seven
awesome.
fundamental tenets. Yes.
The 7 fundamental tenets.
Yeah.
Now, let me scroll down briefly.
So this is a really smart way to get into this and just start breaking down fundamentals. He's about to read off the fundamental tenets of the Church of Satan and see how many this guy agrees with, and yeah, this is going to kind of show where this guy's actually coming from.
Briefly.
I know where this is from.
And can you read that? What does that say?
Yeah, the Satanic Temple.
Of the Satanic Temple.
Yeah, the
So,
Satanic Temple.
essentially, your doctrine and dogma, right, 100% conforms with the 7 tenets of Satanism by your own admission. Is that correct?
Yes, but if you know about the Satanic Temple, they're actually an atheistic organization that does not believe in Satan or God. So, do we lose him?
What does that even mean, though? That's not, that has nothing to do with it. And they say that that these people are atheists, but they're just part of Satanism is worship of self. You don't need to believe in a God to be a Satanist. You get what I'm trying to say? People don't understand this, but yeah. What's happening here? No, he's back. Sorry about that.
I apologize
That's
for
not on
that.
my side.
Anyway, go
Just
ahead.
rewatching it.
No, I was just saying the Satanic Temple, if anybody knows, is an atheistic movement that does not believe in Satan or God. So it's an interesting thing to try to bring up, to try to align it with Satan, but there's no biblical basis that those are Satan's values, and the movement itself doesn't believe in Satan or God.
Correct. It's a secular organization, right?
Yeah.
And its stated goals are to be a subversive element to Christianity by utilizing Christian ethics against Christians.
Yep.
And they utilize these tenets in order to do that, which are
And Satanism wouldn't exist without Christianity. It's a direct inversion or a direct contradiction. The reason why it even exists is a direct contradiction of Christianity. So
borrowed from Christian ethics as a way to snub their nose and say, nah, 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 nah. We got you, Christians. And you agree with every single tenet of the satanic doctrine, the secular subversive organization, which is there specifically to destroy Christianity. Is that not correct, sir?
That's not correct, actually. I'm good friends with a Satanist who belongs to the Satanic Temple, and his goal and their goal is not
I'm good friends with a Satanist. He's my boyfriend.
to subvert Christianity. It's to subvert conservative Christianity, Christian nationalism, the kind that I do think that you probably represent. So
Christian nationalism did not even exist at the time of LaVeyan Satanism. It wasn't even a thing. And the modern Satanic Temple, which took its lead from LaVeyan Satanism's 10 tenets for the now 7, right, also existed before there was a Christian nationalist movement.
Yeah, so this guy's already getting shut down.
At all, in order to remove the 10 Commandments from any type
Buildings.
of public area, in order to remove any type of public prayer from schools, things like this. I suspect these are all things you support.
yes, absolutely, 100%.
As a pastor, right? He supports the 10 Commandments being removed from public buildings and schools.
How is that not subversive?
It is subversive. I believe Jesus is subversive.
So you're a subversive.
Yes, I agree with what you said there. Of course.
Okay, gotcha. And you agree with all of the tenets of Satanism?
Yes, I do. Absolutely.
Okay.
You hear what he just said? He agreed with all the tenets of Satanism. Huh.
So now that we have some of that clarified, can we just move on to a couple of basic questions that I have for you?
Yeah.
You converted to Christianity.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Rachel Wilson is amazing as well. She's written a book on feminism, too. Yeah, I agree. I have it right here behind me. It's called Occult Feminism by Rachel Wilson. It's mind-blowing. All men. It doesn't matter if you have a girlfriend, mom, sister. Give this book to make sure the women around you read this book. It will not, because we're men. You know what I mean? Like, we're men. I don't know how far this is going to do with us, but every woman that I've shown that book to and they've gave it a chance, it's blew their mind, and it's actually changed a lot of their lives. Like, it's changed their relationships are happier now. They are less confused. Like, yeah, I think that women, if you haven't read Occult Feminism by Rachel Wilson, you're doing yourself a complete disservice.
When you were 22?
No, 12.
12. I'm sorry. I read here that you made your final conversion or acceptance at 22. Is that right? When you were an adult? Or
no?
Okay, what did I get wrong?
A few things like the log cabin Republican thing is also interesting and incorrect. But I became a Christian at the age of 12 in a fundamentalist Baptist church and ended up in an evangelical church, then went off to Moody Bible Institute to become a pastor and graduated there when I was 21. And
I see.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where I conflated the two, is you graduated there when you were 21.
Yeah.
And you now serve as a pastor in pastoral duties, correct?
Absolutely.
Who's going to his church? Who's going to this guy's church? Who's signing up for that church where the pastor agrees with all the core tenets of the church or the temple of Satan?
I have
Or
a
the
direct
Satanic
question
Temple.
for you. You may find it offensive, but I would like to have it answered. Have you engaged in group sex with men since you've been a pastor?
No.
Never?
No.
Do you condone group sex with men?
No, I would not say that's general sexual ethic that I would endorse.
Why?
Because I believe that sex is best consensually, lovingly between usually two people. But I also, and I write about this extensively at the end of my new book, that my version of sexual ethics isn't about rules. So you're going to be hard pressed to get me to come down firmly and say something is right or wrong objectively in all situations.
Then why not engage in group sex?
Because that's not what I want to do.
Yeah, I know. But if somebody does want to do it, why wouldn't you condone it?
I think that if your values are centered on love, consent, and adult relationships, then anything can be a healthy expression and anything can be an unhealthy expression.
Okay, so then you would, if somebody came to you and said, well, there's 4 of us men and we all want to get married to each other.
Yes.
You would marry all of them together, correct?
Yeah.
You couldn't
Who was going to his church?
have an objection to that, right?
No, I support
Okay.
polyamory.
And so if they all went home that
He's a Christian that supports gay polyamory. What kind of clown world do we live in? What is a Christian then?
night and had a big gay orgy, you would
It's not
not.
an orgy if they're married. I wouldn't say that. but
Yeah, okay, you wouldn't condemn it, right?
No.
Yeah, so you would condone it, you would marry it. So you do condone this activity.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
He's with Don Lemon doing all this. he's the guy that married Don Lemon.
Now,
The way that you're framing it now, yes.
yeah, now if 6 secularists made the declaration that they were married,
Yeah.
right, absent your authority to marry them, of which you have none, but if you, assuming I just granted that you did, the secularists who give themselves the authority and then they all marry each other, all 6 of them, you couldn't say that they're doing anything wrong, right?
I don't think consensual adults in relationships are doing anything wrong. No.
Never.
Never. They're never doing anything wrong.
Not if it's a consensual, loving relationship.
Because there's no harm, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can
He's about to flip these arguments that this guy's never thought about. When you track them all the way through, Andrew Wilson's going to give some examples it's going to leave this guy like absolutely stunned, because he's not. It's only going to expose his moral ambiguity or moral relativism, that this guy doesn't have inherent morality. Like, from the Christian precept, it's not our morals, or it's not a Christian's morals. It's the morals that come from, the Christian fundamentals. So, no matter what we believe, no matter what we believe, it's not what we believe. It's more about adhering to morals outside of ourselves that exist,
Can you tell me then, sir, Brandon, I'm really curious about this. If your grandmother died and you dug her up from the grave and nobody knew about it and you had sex with her corpse, can you demonstrate for me the harm?
She can't consent. So yes, that would be the harm.
She wait a second. She doesn't need a consent. She's
does.
not alive. What? No. Why? Wait. What? What?
I think you're spinning yourself in circles here. My
Confused.
standard for sexual morality
Yeah. How are you? Where's the argument here? Like, just can you argue this point? Who's being harmed?
is that all sex has to be consensual.
Can a tree consent?
No, and I don't think you should have sex with trees.
So then if you have a wooden dildo, that's a no-no in Brandon's world?
I think that's a little bit different than having sex with a tree, but
Why is that different?
I mean, technically having sex with the wooden dildo is having sex with the tree.
I think sex toys and trees are different.
Because it's dead, Brandon?
I honestly am not sure exactly what
Yeah,
He doesn't
because it's
understand.
dead, right?
He doesn't
The
understand.
wooden dildo's fine, because even though it's a part of the tree, because it's dead, right, Brandon?
This is an absurd word game. But
Can you answer my question, please?
I'll concede that
It's not an absurd word game, right? Yeah, because it's dead. So then if grandma's dead, what's the objection?
I think consent between human beings is how sex should be lived out. Do you
Yeah, that's
consent-
not a human being. That's a dead body. It's a
you
corpse. It's not a human.
I think it's still a human being.
What makes it a human?
Do you consent? What do you think about masturbation on your part? I'm interested.
Well, I think it's sinful, and that you should stay away from doing it.
Okay,
Now, I've answered that question. Let me finish. You can ask your questions, right? We got a long debate here.
Yeah.
But can I finish my inquiry, please, before
do.
you move off of it? If you masturbate with a wooden dildo and that's conceivably fine, but having sex with a tree which is alive is not, then the only threshold breaker there is that the wood is dead. That is the only. Well, then what's the threshold breaker, Brandon?
human.
Tree.
I
Yeah.
believe sex. I
Okay.
don't concede the point that a dildo is a tree, first of all, but I
I
also
didn't say it's a tree. I said it's part of a dead tree. So then, what if we just cut off grandma's head and you just had sex with that?
I believe that a sexual relationship has to be consensual between two human beings.
Yeah, but they're not what makes them human beings? They're not alive.
I'm consenting human beings
Yeah.
is how sex should be expressed.
Yeah, I know, but that makes no sense, Brandon, because if they're not alive, what makes them now human beings?
Clarify which one you're talking about at this point.
Well, I'm a human being. You're talking about a corpse, right? A corpse.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing you don't think that it's okay to have sex with any part of a
That's not a
corpse.
consenting human being. Yeah.
Right. You can't have sex with any part of a corpse, but you can't have sex with anything that's alive that doesn't consent. So if you have sex with wood, right, that's a part of something which is dead, just like if you were to have sex with grandma's head. How am I wrong, Brandon?
I think you're wrong because, again, the way I center my sexual ethics is not through confining, but through a set of values in the middle and moving out from there. If you are engaging in a sexual practice with oneself that is consensual, I think that is fine, generally.
Okay, and a wooden dildo is fine.
Sure.
Okay, but that's part.
I wouldn't recommend it.
But that's part of a now dead tree. So if you say the wood is no longer tree, and the wood can no longer be the tree because the tree is dead, right? Then how does that not apply to human beings, Brandon? Can you explain that to me?
Human needs to consent in order to engage sexually with them.
Yeah, that's not my question. Can you repeat my question so I know you know it?
No, because this is what I'm going to answer.
Okay, so I'm going to repeat my question.
Fine, and I'm not going to answer.
So you're not going to answer any questions because you don't like the entailment of it. So here's the logic, Brandon. Yeah. If you have a wooden dildo, that's a part of a tree that is now dead. You say that is fine to do because it's no longer a tree because it's dead, right? It's a part of a dead tree.
It's not a consenting human being, yes.
Yeah, but you can't have sex with a tree either, right, Brandon?
Because it's not a consenting human being.
Yeah, okay. Well, wait a second.
I don't concede that it's having sex. I wouldn't say that.
So if a guy, I'm sorry, the only proper way for you to have sex is with a consenting human being, period.
Yeah, I don't think masturbation in my definition wouldn't be sex. I wouldn't say dildo is sex.
But masturbation, in your view, is fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so could you use Granny's hand that's cut off and masturbate yourself with her hand?
Can you?
Non-consensual, no.
Well, wait, it's non-consensual with the tree, the dead part of the tree now, Brandon.
I reject that premise.
What's wrong with it? Where's the contradiction?
I think it's just...
That is true. Andrew believes in God. His views are from God's teachings, ethics, and without God, Brandon is only left with his preferences. And that's why you can tell, he's just putting him through the ringer with tracking the logic all the way through.
That's an absurd premise. I think you know that it's an absurd
Well, just saying it's absurd is not an argument, right?
Well,
that would be, so that's not an argument. So here, I'll put it in a premise for you. Brandon says only human beings should be able to have sex, right? Consenting human beings.
Yeah,
if a human being masturbates, that's fine because after all, if they're masturbating, in Brandon's view, that is not sex. I'm not incorrect so far, right?
That's all good.
Perfect. Okay, so if you take a piece of a tree and you shove it up your butt, right, in a masturbatory fashion, that is fine from Brandon's view, right? Because after all, there's no human being requirement there to consent to. If you use Granny's dead arm, where's the human being now?
I don't accept the premise that because Granny's dead, she's not a human being.
Yeah, no, it's just Granny's arm.
It's still part of Granny. She's not a consenting human.
So if I got my arm cut off, that arm is a separate human for me?
No, but if anybody somebody tried to use your cut off arm for sex without your consent, that would be wrong.
Why?
Explain why. Not just
because it cannot consent.
Yeah, but
the arm can't consent.
Neither can the piece of wood.
But the wood is not a human being.
Yeah, but neither is an arm.
We're going to keep going in the circle, and also I'm going to keep saying.
Yeah, well, what makes an arm a human being?
The arm is a part of a human being.
Does the arm have a soul?
I actually don't have answers to questions about the soul. I think that's beyond our pay grade.
Do dead bodies have souls?
Perhaps.
Do you think that the soul stays with the dead body too?
Perhaps. I don't know. I've never died.
So you don't know? You don't. No. Do you think that that human beings have a soul?
It seems likely, yes.
Seems likely. Okay, so you don't know where the soul goes. So if somebody cuts off my arm, would it stand to reason then that it could have split my soul?
I don't know.
You don't know?
It's above my pay grade.
Okay, so when it comes to then just basic ontology, if there is no soul, or we can't demonstrate a soul.
Well, I think there is a soul.
Real quick. I did have a comment right here where she said everybody masturbates. And I'm not going to say that, at our core, left in our natural form, that people aren't doing that, but there are people out there that have, had lust removed from their lives and are attempting to be as virtuous as possible, removing the plank from their own eyes of sexual immorality, and they don't do that. So I don't know what people do, what people do behind closed doors, but I'm not going to sit here and pigeonhole people and say that that everybody masturbates. I don't think that's true. I think there are a lot of people that probably don't masturbate just due to the fact that that they've conquered the lust, or God removed it from them, or whatever. So yeah, just take that into consideration.
Well, as I said, I think there is.
Yeah, but you don't know how it operates, how it works, nothing like that, which is fine. Okay, yeah. That's fine. Okay, so let's talk about basic ontology absent Christianity then, right? Okay. If you cut your finger off, are you less of a man?
I don't know how to answer that question yet. Are you less than a full human body?
That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking if you're less of a person.
But what constitutes a person in this?
That is true. They do hate when he uses distasteful, extreme examples, but these people, so they're like, oh my gosh, he's being so vulgar by giving these examples, right? Or saying these things, but they're also co-signing sodomy. Which one's more vulgar? Giving extreme examples and putting people through the ringer and tracking the logic all the way through with really extreme examples, or putting your genitalia in another, you get what I'm saying? Which one's more vulgar? You know what I mean? With this guy, this guy's lifestyle is way more vulgar than anything that Andrew can even say.
Well, from your perspective, I think a person would be like, it would have to have consciousness, perhaps self-awareness. That would be person, what a person is. Yeah. So the finger couldn't be a person. Yeah. So a finger couldn't be a person. So if a finger's not a person,
I still think it belongs to a person, and therefore I would want consent.
What makes it? Why does it belong to you? If you're dead, nothing belongs to you. Do you think people have belongings when they're dead?
Sure. I'm sure you believe in an afterlife. Perhaps they do. The Egyptians sure thought so.
Yeah.
He's a Christian pastor talking about, well, the Egyptians believed, it's like Egyptians also like bled virgins on the top of pyramids and threw babies into fires. And what are we talking about here?
We should get back on topic a little bit more. I don't know if you guys want to continue the cross-examination.
Jake is a good moderator.
A different topic.
I think that this is pertinent to the topic, because what we're establishing is metaphysical principles and ontology. And so what I'm trying to determine is what Brandan, I'm just doing a basic consistency check. If Brandan says there is no soul and he doesn't know what happens in the afterlife, right? Well, you're not sure. So it's possible there isn't. It's possible there isn't.
I'm pretty sure.
Pretty sure means it's possible there isn't, right?
Sure. I'm an agnostic.
Okay, so if it's possible that there is no soul, right, then if the finger is cut off, right, then, I mean, even if there is a soul, that can't be what constitutes you, right? The finger cannot be what constitutes you.
Absolutely. But it's a part of you. It's a part of you, I would say.
Okay. So got it. Now I understand what you mean by person. So let me reframe the question then. If it were the case that Granny gave consent that you could have sex with her dead body after she died, can you demonstrate the harm?
I think you need conscious consent in my sexual ethic. So no, I think that would be wrong.
You need conscious consent, but that's really weird, because Granny's not conscious.
Exactly. So you could not have sex with Granny.
Then you couldn't have sex with a piece of wood. You couldn't have sex with anything.
I understand the argument you're making, but I reject.
Yeah, no doubt. And I understand. Yeah, Logan, we've talked about this stuff, dude. Nothing's ever changed. But what I'm saying is we're looking at it from the Christian purview. You know what you get what I'm trying to say, the Christian purview, meaning that, you know, this is is this true, or is it true regardless of our personal, like anything I'm saying right now, it doesn't matter how I'm living. It's more or less like what's the Bible say? You know what I mean? Like, and this guy's a pastor. And should we have people, you know, kind of blurring the message due to modernity? You know what I mean? And I believe that Christianity shouldn't be changed due to, you know, people's feelings now. Because of the progressive nature of today, things are much more accepted, but homosexuality has always existed. It's always existed, but for the first time today, there are homosexual pastors. So take that into consideration. Homosexuality has always existed, but in today's modern time, people are trying to push it into the church, where the church is now supposed to affirm this, which is what a lot of people are disagreeing with. You know what I mean?
The premise that a piece of wood that's turned into a dildo, by the way, wooden dildos sound like a terrible idea, but any other sort of sexual toy, like, I think that's a wholly different inanimate object category that we're talking about versus a consenting human being.
Okay. What I'm asking you for is to demonstrate the harm, not how your feelings. I don't care how you feel about it. I don't care what you believe about it, right? Like, well, my personal feelings are that's I don't like it. Your whole position is based around a harm principle. You have three tiers. You were asked this. You have 3 tiers. Your first tier is harm to self. Second tier, harm to others. Third tier, harm to God's creation.
Exactly. Like, that's the whole thing is people will come to church to escape these things, like, you know, sexuality, but lust is like is a human thing that can have terrible results in our lives. Terrible results. So even if it doesn't matter if you're straight, gay, whatever you are, people go to the church to get relieved of these things. And if this guy's affirming some of this stuff that has such negative consequences, you know what I mean? Homosexuality, like, yes, it's always existed, but if you actually put it on paper and you ask what's the pros for society of this and spreading it, there are no pros. There's no pros on a society that's becoming more homosexual. You know what I mean? More there's no pros to it. You know, you get what I'm saying? Everything that exists on paper just shows that there's cons, especially in a population crisis, STDs, violent rates, all this kind of stuff where you're like, wait a minute, maybe we shouldn't push this as a norm. We should probably keep it where it's always been, where it's always been part of human nature that Christianity is made to defeat. Christianity is a religion that helps you defeat your human nature. You know what I mean? Because our human nature can reap terrible results.
Demonstrate the harm. But if Granny leaves behind a note saying, I want my son to sexually abuse my body all day long, demonstrate the harm.
I think that's an immoral action.
Yeah, demonstrate it.
She cannot consent.
So what? How is that harmful?
I think non-consensual sexual engagement is harmful.
Demonstrate it. What does I think mean? That doesn't mean shit.
That doesn't
well, okay, Brandon.
That's how we all live our lives.
But Chuck over there doesn't think it's harmful. Can you tell Chuck why he shouldn't do it, other than because Brandon he just thinks you shouldn't? Chuck's over there. Yeah, I know we have laws, but let's say that the law said you could do it.
Right.
Then I would reject that law.
Great. So then the
laws have nothing to do with morality.
The law argument doesn't matter. So Chuck over here says to you, Granny left a note behind saying I could bang her dead body. And, Brandon, I really want to. I'm going to go do that. Can you give me a good, compelling reason not to? Your answer is?
She cannot consent.
Yeah. And he says, I don't need consent. I agree. She's dead and gave me consent.
Scott, that's a good one, bro.
You still need active consent in a sexual relationship.
That is active consent.
It's not. A dead person writing a note is not active. It's no different than if I wrote a note today and said someone could have sex with me. I can remove or revoke that consent. Consent means
it's just moving the goalpost.
How do you do that?
Exactly. So you shouldn't.
Yeah. So he says, okay, well, I disagree with you, Brandon. I don't think that I need to have consent from someone who's already consented, right? Because by this view, you're saying that if you rolled over in the morning and banged your wife, you woke her up, right? You woke her up with sex. That what? That is there
That's problematic without consent? Yeah.
That's problematic. Now that's problematic. That's another guy that's going to think that rolling over on your wife and just being like, yeah, I'm not asking. That's grape now. Like it's just moving the goalpost. It's just moving the goalpost. I know a lot of married men, if they woke up and they're, and the wife's, they wouldn't be like, oh my God, you're a grapist. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that at all. Matter of fact, married women, go try that. Go try that. Go wake your husband up with some with a mouth surprise and see if he calls you a grapist.
Absolutely.
It's problematic to do.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So is that grape in your view?
Is that what?
Is that grape?
If somebody is not consenting to you having sex with them and you have sex with them, probably.
Yeah. So if I or any other man ever woke up with their wife straddling them, right? She would be graping them.
I mean, this goes into hyper individualistic contexts of relationships. You can give consent in relationships.
Yeah. Do you know what implied consent is?
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you know that the entirety of society operates on implied consent, including in marriage? And you kind of have to, because otherwise you would make rapists out of millions of men who wake up their wife with sex all the time and vice versa. And obviously they don't consider that to be grape. There's an implication there of consent. So if it's implied by a note from Granny, you still don't really have much of an argument here. Your only argument about why you haven't demonstrated any harm, so your principle's not consistent. Your only argument is because I just really feel like you shouldn't.
No, it's first of all, harm is one of the principles. I think do no harm is a generally good principle for all of us to live by. But also, again, I state, Granny can't consent. A note from a dead person is not active, conscious human consent.
Neither is waking your wife up with sex.
And again, I think that sounds pretty morally ambiguous to me. But
it's morally ambiguous?
Yeah, I think
you don't think that there's an implication for sex?
What happens if your wife says no?
Well, then you would stop.
I hope, yeah.
Yeah, then you would stop. But so what? There's still an implication there. From your standpoint, you know how stupid this view is? This would be like saying, anytime you're on a first date and you leaned in for a kiss, you'd be like, okay, is it okay if I kissed you?
Yeah,
is that okay? Yeah. Is that all right? Do you think human beings don't operate that way?
Imagine that. Imagine going on a date with a girl for the first time, and you and like before you lean in, you just say, "Hey, can I kiss you?" And then after that, back up and then say, "Hey, can I use some tongue?" And then just keep doing that. You think that she's going to be like, "Yeah, this is great. This is awesome," or is she going to be like, "This guy's a weirdo serial killer"?
Dude,
I do.
No, the human beings don't operate that way. They don't go, oh, okay, sweetheart. Now just what I'm going to do is I'm going to lean in for a kiss. Is it okay if I use my tongue? Like, do you have to ask that? Is it all right if I use my tongue? Right? Can I give a little nibble on the lip? Do you need consent for each individual activity? Like, what do you need here, Brandon?
No? I think you're taking one statement about the need for consent and turning it into a boogeyman that doesn't exist.
Because when you say yes, there's an implication.
The point is that when you enter into any physical, sexual relationship, romantic, intimate relationship, however you want to frame it, there should be consent.
Yeah, I get it. But you do realize that when you say, well, if you...
He's pretty much arguing just from his preferences, nothing that's based on Christianity. And as a pastor, I would think you'd be arguing from this stuff, or from that point, you know,
slip in the tongue or things like this. There's an implication there that when she said yes
as well. I agree.
Yeah, the implication there is that when she said yes, she's also consenting to these other factors, right? Because otherwise you can create a microcosm. Sure. There would be no good reason for you to consistently not apply that to Granny's body if she left a note behind.
Well, I do inconsistently apply that to Granny's body. So.
Okay, got it. So okay, well, let's move over to some of your other contradictions. You say that sex is an immutable characteristic for men and women?
Yes, depending on how you're using the word sex. Are we talking about sex with Granny or sex as the immutable characteristic?
Sex, your sexual proclivities.
Got it. Sexual identity, I would frame that as, yeah.
Okay, well then how can you make the case then that thousands of years ago people didn't understand sexuality if it's immutable?
Sexuality as
that can't actually be true. That can't actually be true that sex is an immutable characteristic. Then you would have to tell every single straight man that dealt with homosexuality in their past. There's thousands of married straight men that have children now that dealt with homosexuality when they were younger or earlier in their life, or you know what I mean? And now they don't have the proclivity of homosexuality anymore. And yeah, I can't, we have to call them liars. We'd have to say that they're liars. We'd have to call everybody a liar. Yeah. Insane.
As such, talking about homosexuality, heterosexuality did not exist as principles.
What do you mean? Of course they did. It's immutable. It's immutable.
No, see, you're conflating things. You can.
What am I conflating?
You're conflating the idea that people in the ancient world could have sex with anybody of any gender, but they didn't have a language to say that this is a sexual orientation. When I say that sexual orientation came about in the 1800s, that's because that is
what? In the Bible, it clearly says that you shouldn't be laying around with men and women doing man things. There's tons of things in the Bible that reflect that this has been brought up, and homosexuality has always been like part of human nature. And it's not reflected as good in the Bible, but the idea that it's immutable and you can't change, that's not true at all.
When psychologists came up with the idea that there are sexual orientations that are innate.
No, now you're conflating. It's a word concept fallacy.
Yep.
You're claiming that because the way that psychologists identify sexual proclivity with different language, that means that there was no concept of the same exact thing in the ancient world. This is categorically false.
No, it's not.
We know this from Roman emperors. We know this from ancient Egyptians.
Know what?
We know that the idea of same-sex activities, or the idea that two men could love each other, was a possibility in the ancient
Absolutely.
world.
I completely
What's
agree.
the distinction between that view and your own?
They did not see it as sexual orientation. Yes, Emperor
What is it?
Hadrian,
What does that? What does orientation here mean?
that we now believe that psychology, which you probably reject, we believe that sexual orientation is an innate part of a human being, that you are oriented towards a attraction, whether that's bi, hetero, or homo.
Yes, but if it was innate, that means they couldn't help themselves, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so totally. So then if that's the case, if that's the case, then obviously the activity, which is around these immutable characteristics, happened. And so if it happened, if it happened, then it's descriptive. So when you say, hang on, let me finish my point, then you can clarify. So when you say, Brandon, the ancient world didn't really understand homosexuality, they did understand it very well. And it was, if it's innate, 100%. They couldn't control it, right? Then they gravitated towards this innate characteristic.
You're misunderstanding the argument I've made consistently across 4 books and thousands of videos, which is not.
It's a bad argument. I don't misunderstand it. Make the argument. Make the argument. Make the argument.
I am making it. The argument is that, yes, people engaged in same-sex relationships all throughout history. I agree. Emperor Hadrian and Antinous were in a very famous same-sex relationship in the Roman Empire. They existed. And in fact, I would even concede that in the Greco-Roman world of the first century, there are over 13 words for different kinds of sexual relationships between different genders. However, they did not understand that as sexual orientation, meaning that in the Roman world, you were permitted to have sex with man, woman, as long as they were a lower social status, you were legally and morally allowed to have sex with whomever you wanted. So people did not conceive of themselves as gay. They conceived of themselves as a person who's having sex with somebody that they're interested in.
Yeah, okay. But this is an immutable characteristic, yeah?
I believe so, yeah.
That attraction?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if that attraction is an immutable characteristic, then they were following their immutable characteristics and their proclivities, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if that's the case, then saying that the ancient world didn't really have an understanding of this would be incorrect. No, they did. Not only did they, well, wait, not only did they, but what you're trying to do is you're trying to smuggle in this word orientation, but you're actually saying the same thing twice. You're saying they gave into their sexual orientation then, which was an immutable characteristic, and they give into their sexual orientation now.
It's true. It's true. You are right, Scott. He is one of the most captivating, entertaining people on the internet. I mean, ever since I started finding this guy's debates and, and debates as a whole, my whole interests have changed. I'd rather watch this than anime or any of that kind of stuff that I used to be, waste my time with. I actually don't even listen to music anymore. And anybody that knows me from my past knows how important music, being an artist and, most of my life, I devoted towards my art. I don't even listen to music anymore because I think it dumbs people down. When I have a second to be listening to music, I probably got the same amount of time that I could be listening to a debate or something that's a more higher level, to kind of stimulate my brain. So yeah, ever since finding this guy's stuff, my interests have changed. My life has changed because he actually, because of him being an Orthodox Christian, he kind of pointed me towards going back to church. And and my life is completely different now. So, I agree. Andrew is entertaining. And when he gets into this point where he pushes, kind of pins them and that's the best part. And there's all crazy amounts of debates where he uses these tactics. He also has a debate course that a lot of people are talking about as well,
Now, which is an immutable characteristic. You're just saying the same exact thing twice. That's it.
Same thing.
Yeah, the literal only argument I'm making is that the language of sexual orientation did not exist in the ancient world.
And what does orientation mean? I want to have sex with same sex.
That's it.
Yes, absolutely.
Then that definitely
They
existed.
did not have the language to speak of it.
Yes, they did.
They did not.
They most certainly understood that I want to have sex with man. If I want to have sex with man, I can describe that I want to have sex with man. The Japanese did this. The ancient samurai did this. They have documented history of ancient samurai, and they would use boys who they were trying to make into samurai. They would use them as essentially sex toys. And yeah, they talked. And by the way, there's old books on sexuality. I don't know if you know this or not. Very, very old, detailed books
my argument
from hundreds and hundreds of years before your idea of orientation. You're just piggybacking on the same ideas which already existed.
I think you're completely misunderstanding the argument.
Okay, give me the argument again.
But I don't understand where you think I'm taking this argument. The argument, quite simply, this is not like a foundational point to anything, but simply an objective reality that the concepts of homosexuality, bisexuality, and heterosexuality did not exist as such in the ancient world. Yes, people understood. I don't think Emperor Hadrian would have said, I am gay. He, in his lifetime, had sex with men and women, and then he has this beautiful relationship between him
Yes,
and
but that's where the smuggle comes in, and it is foundational, whether you know it or not. So here's the smuggle.
Yeah.
All you're doing is taking language and adding new descriptors to old activity. It's just new descriptors. That's it, right? When you say they didn't have the command of the language, they did. They just called it different things, but it was the same exact thing.
That's
so
all I'm trying to say.
you're doing,
These guys, they're only in about 35 minutes right now, 40 minutes.
Well, you're creating this conflation when you say to Christians, they didn't really have a concept of homosexuality. Well, no, actually, they did have a concept of homosexuality. It's just that they didn't use the same descriptive terms that you use from the 1900s. So what?
Yeah.
They would
like, so what? Why would that matter?
They would not describe it in the same way. When they thought about sex, it was more about social status than it was about an orientation or a psychological disposition.
First of all, can we clear this up? Because what you're talking about is mostly with nobles, right? And the way that peasants and non-noble classes viewed marriage was completely different than how nobility viewed.
I don't know about the timestamp. I'm new to this stuff, but basically right now it's 44 minutes and 30 seconds in.
Marriage, even when you're talking about Rome, for instance, when you're talking about the social classes and you're saying, well, higher ranked classes could basically at their whim, they could rape their slaves, things like this. This is true, right? But for the average Roman citizen, it was not. And when you're talking about in medieval Europe or in Japanese culture, these were caste systems. Okay, and the meaning of these things from the nobility class was completely different than it was for the peasant class. So again, these descriptors don't actually make sense.
I'm not a scholar of any of those other places. When I'm speaking of the Greco-Roman world of the first century. That is all I claim to know.
Yeah, I know, but don't you think that it's important if you're going to make these kind of bold claims about the conflation of human sexuality, and then you only isolate it to one particular culture, in this case, Rome, even though the entire rest of the world actively participated in sexual activity, that your idea that people just didn't know what the fuck it was is absurd because it's so isolated?
Because I'm a scholar of the New Testament, and that's what I'm interested in these arguments and conversations.
Yeah, well, this would go to this idea. So Romans themselves studied all sorts of cultures, right? They studied what they considered barbarian cultures. That's where we get barbarian from, because you all sound like this, right? That's where barbarian comes from.
Yeah.
And they documented many of these cultures, and they definitely gave descriptors for these activities, sometimes frowning upon these activities, sometimes not. Depends on which scholar you're looking at, depends on which philosopher you're looking at. But to say that the people who grasped logic, comprehensive propositional logic, which modern logic is based on, modern philosophy, didn't understand keys to human sexuality, and only through esoteric psychology in the 1900s, we were finally able to grasp it, is fucking insane.
It's dumb.
What you're doing is you're using
It's
a
dumb.
fallacy of modernism.
Yep.
So you're saying the entire argument that you're using is fallacious. It's from a modernist perspective.
Yes.
You making the claim that we came up with new descriptors for an old phenomenon, which already was known. It was debated about in many cultures all over the world, and even the Romans themselves discussed this depending on which era they were in, based on their observations. And we know these insights because we have their observational papers of other tribes.
It's simply not true. Sexual orientation as a psychological, biological, innate disposition towards an attraction was not how the ancient Greco-Roman world thought about sexuality.
Let's see if this is true. When you say psychological phenomenon, psychology is the study of the mind. Yes?
And you don't believe in it. Yes.
Study of the mind, a soft science.
Yes.
Okay. Is it the study of the brain?
Nope.
Partially, yes.
No.
Yes.
It's not. No.
Yes.
Okay. Well, so psychologists, what part of the brain do they study?
If you're going to try to make the argument that that we're going to talk about like neurology and people that are actually studying the physical nature of the brain.
Yeah, those aren't psychologists. Those are neuroscientists.
Yes.
Those are
All right, Scott, see you
those
soon.
are
Separation.
yeah. So there is a massive separation between a neuroscientist and a psychologist. Psychologists study
pastoral counseling classes. We studied the brain itself.
Oh, which part?
We talked about what each part of the brain does and what.
Okay, yeah. Well, okay. So
the anxiety brain.
So let's dive into this. Psychology is a predictor for human behavior.
That's it.
That's it. That's all it even can be.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what the disease process is in psychology? What is the process, the disease process?
Tell me more about what that means.
Well, in science is only as useful as the controls which you add. So in medical science, if we're going to diagnose a disease, we use a process called the disease process. It's a step-by-step inductive process which goes through and
He's out of his league in this one right now.
utilizing strict regulatory scientific controls, rules everything out that the thing can't be, therefore isolating the thing that it is. What is the disease process in psychology?
Again, I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know actually how to answer this question.
I thought you were super familiar in your pastoral,
No, I said. I said.
Oh yeah, we can
that-
go over
let me
that
help
later.
you. There isn't one. There isn't one. There is no disease process in psychology. And the reason there is no disease process in psychology is because it's the study of a metaphysical mind. It is not the study of anything which is physical. Really? Then tell me this, sir. Could a psychologist diagnose a person with narcissism? What makes them correct?
That you can see behavior patterns that clinically line up with narcissism.
Interesting. But every single behavioral pattern a person can have, they can have all of the patterns which would fit with a narcissist and not be diagnosed as a narcissist because it's completely and subjectively up to the psychologist themselves, the studier of the mind, to make this assessment. When you have a disease, an actual disease or illness, there's a process that is absent your independent subjective mind. You go, wait, you see that big fucking tumor right there? That's the problem. And here it is, and I'll show it to you. That process does not exist with psychology. What you've done is you've made a grouping, a mind grouping, based on what you consider to be proclivities and just renamed them. And then you try to pass it off as though it's true. So let's start with this. Give me any scientific proof whatsoever that homosexuality is an innate characteristic.
That it occurs naturally throughout the world. I think that's what we would mostly say.
Oh, that's
Wait, I'm sorry.
What?
Let's back up. Did you just appeal to nature?
Yes, I'm going to make lots of appeals in this debate. But first of all, and also, I'm going to say I'm humble enough to admit that I'm not here to debate psychology. I'm here to debate theology and the Bible. So
yeah, but the problem is that, well, no, you're not. You're here to debate whether or not LGBTQ belongs in church. And one of the premises for that is that your worldview is dependent upon science, psychology, sociology, and a few other things. So you making justifications.
But as a pastor, shouldn't it be based on your Christian values?
It's based on those things. Perfectly acceptable for me to enter into criticisms on the tenets in which you hold the values that you make these assessments. So when we're talking about,
acceptable for me to say I don't understand psychology enough to feel like I can credibly debate it with you.
Great, but you can credibly base your worldview on it.
Yes, I can cite psychotherapists, psychologists, and trust their work. Yes,
Based on
that their work is peer-reviewed, scientifically.
Faith. No, well, actually, most of it.
Well, I am a man of faith, so
Yeah, there's called a replication crisis. I don't know if you know this or
He's a
not,
man of
but
faith.
inside the replication crisis, almost all, right, we're talking 60-70% in psychology, even worse in sociology, cannot be replicated, which is a key component to the scientific method, as you know. By the way, can you just tell me real quick what the scientific method is?
I agree. He did speak about a lot of things. Yeah, but remember, it's not only, the Bible isn't only about the things that Jesus said. It's extrapolated across the apostles, the teachings of the Old Testament. Like, it's not simply about what Jesus said, because if that's what we're going off of, strictly the things that only Jesus said, the Bible would be, it wouldn't be what it is now. It wouldn't be the Bible.
Yes, that you're able to repeat a process.
No, just tell me the method.
I'm not going to know what language
You don't know the scientific. So you base your worldview on science. You don't know the scientific method. You base it on psychology, and you don't know anything about psychology. Like, where? I don't understand. What do you actually base your worldview on, sir?
Scientific consensus, psychology, reason, experience, theology, tradition, the Bible.
Faith.
Yeah.
You base it all on faith.
Yeah, I do. I'm a man of faith, of course.
So you base the fact that we should utilize psychology, which you don't know anything about, on faith and consensus, and you base the fact that we should base these things on science on faith as well, right?
Amen.
Okay, so if you should base these things on faith, these human institutions that you just have broad faith in for no particularly describable reason, why shouldn't I have? Well, okay, yeah, peer review can be good. But meta-analysis is way better. The problem is in psychology, you don't have a lot of that. You have peer review.
He also said that marriage is between a man and a woman. So again, that's not, the Bible is not just based on what Jesus said. That's not the Bible. And that's not even the Christian belief system. So the Christian belief system doesn't come from just what Jesus said. So I think you're coming from a completely different angle. You know what I mean?
View, that's true, but a meta-analysis for the actual proofs of reproducibility, not very good
Nate?
at all. So since you have faith in these things, in these institutions, why shouldn't I have faith that LGBTQ, open LGBTQ, and the activeness of gays in the church shouldn't be rejected? Why shouldn't I just have faith in that?
I don't think that you shouldn't have faith in that. I disagree with it. I think it's wrong, but I don't object to the fact that you have the right to believe that.
So do we just come to all of our moral decisions via consensus then?
No, I am actively against your view. I actively spend my life working against your view, subverting your view.
So even
he just admitted it, that he spends his whole entire life subverting, traditional Christian talking points or traditional Christian beliefs, subversion.
if there was consensus that it was the case that most people agreed with me, you would of course say that that's incorrect, right?
Of course.
Based on
scripture, science, reason, psychology. We can go through the list again and again.
Well, but all of those things you said, the things. We'll leave scripture aside for a second, right? We'll just focus on the materialist perspectives. These things you said, you claim you don't even understand, and you just have faith in them as being true.
Yeah, I have a general understanding from being with a psychotherapist for 15 years of my life. I understand how that works in my own world, and it seems to work. So I have a lot of reasons to trust that that's good and true.
Faith.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah. Faith. So the thing.
Amen. Amen on psychoscience, on the soft science of psychology. Amen. Amen. Who's going to this guy's church? Are you going to his church? Let me find out. Any of y'all go to this guy's church.
Thing is that I don't understand, because if that is the standard of just have faith, if you have faith in this thing, then it's true, right? Or at least it's the only truth we can ascertain.
No, I don't believe that we can absolutely ascertain the objective truth.
Then what makes your view true?
It's true in the way it lives out in my life.
So then if it is the case that the thing is only true because it's true to you, right? Therefore, your faith would have to be true. It's true to you, right?
It's true to me, but I'm not going to say it's objectively true for all people. No.
Okay, I'm not saying it is, but even if it wasn't, right, then there's no actual good reason you can give me why subjectively, if I can't just convince everybody to agree with me in this whole Christian nationalism crusade thing in order to discriminate against LGBTQ people.
And also, I know that you're dropping scripture things that Jesus said, and just remember, man, from the traditional Christian like purview, it's not about our interpretation of what these words mean. I would say defer to your spiritual father. And I know that some of this can be very clear cut in what you're reading, but sometimes if you go to your spiritual father, with apostolic succession that have been repeating the same thing over and over, maybe they can give you a different interpretation than our personal interpretation, which is basically Protestantism. And what you see today, modernity, modern Christianity, is about your personal interpretation of what these words mean, and instead of kind of deferring to what they've always meant and how they were meant to be perceived,
people by pushing them out of the church. Can you give me a good, compelling reason outside because I really don't want you to, Andrew?
I can give you a good biblical reason for sure.
Give me a good. Well, we'll get to the biblical ethics soon.
That's what I'm here to talk about.
I just want to start with but that's not your only foundation. You don't appeal. Oh, okay. So you appeal to the Bible
as a biblical scholar. I function as a biblical scholar.
Is the Bible the ultimate truth?
No.
Okay, well then, whatever
you think it is, yeah, don't you?
Your epistemic claim is then about the Bible, you basing your worldview off of the Bible is meaningless to me because you're already saying it's not true.
I didn't say it's not true. I didn't.
It's not the ultimate truth.
Yeah.
Okay, ultimate being 100% true.
No book is ultimately true.
Okay, maybe you don't. All I'm saying is what early Christians, like, again, I think that I think you should see the timeline. I think you should go about the timeline, and even what you're saying there. Again, this is your interpretation, and again, I'm not an apologist. I'm not going to sit here and be into some Christian apology stuff with you, but because also I don't have the authority or the audacity to do such a thing. But what I would say is, early Christians believe something a little bit different, bro.
Okay, got it. So then again, any claims you make there are going to be faith-based, and just like any claims that you. Well, I'm sorry. Are the claims you're about to make true?
I believe they are true, yes.
Okay. Why do you believe that they are true?
For these, I believe there's great biblical evidence and moral evidence that they're true.
Let's start with the moral evidence.
Yep.
Well, I think we've already beat that one down when we got stuck on a
No, we haven't beaten down moral evidence with truth. So now we're getting into epistemic claims. We're talking about epistemology. So I would like to know, what is your theory of truth?
I believe that an objective truth exists. I don't believe that we can know it objectively. I think that's quite clearly true, that every generation we continue to wrestle with the same questions and try to get to the same truth. However, I do believe in revelation of truth. I think we get glimpses of.
Yes, we should try our best to follow the overall teachings of Christ. I would say that there's an end. It's not an or, it's an end, but it's about who's interpreting these teachings of Christ and what they mean. Because the reason why we're even into this debate is because this guy personally interpreted what he read in the Bible with no authority over the things he's saying at all. So again, if me and let's say you are reading scripture and what Jesus' teaching says to me is different than what it says to you, who's right? That's the point. And again, I'm not going to debate with people in the comments, but more or less like just early Christians believe a lot different of modern Christians. They believe a lot. It's a completely different religion. What's being practiced today is completely different than what was practiced then. If you grabbed a Christian from 500 AD, 600 AD, and dropped them into a modern church, they'd be like, this is heresy university. What is this?
Of truth. And that's in my Christian faith tradition and the way I hold the Bible. That's what I use to guide my own sense of truth.
So then truth itself is not a thing which you can know.
Objective truth.
Hold on real quick. I should review the last debate Andrew did on the Raging Tomato. Oh yeah, I'll do that. I have no, if you guys ever want me to review anything or talk about anything, I'm always looking for more content. That's the one thing I have a problem with, is having time to curate the stuff I'm going to be covering. So yeah, if you guys ever want to DM me on what you guys want to see, let me know. Because you guys are part of this. You guys are going to watch this, hopefully build a lot bigger than it is now. And I want you guys to see it right from ground zero, right from the very beginning. So any help that you guys, I'm not asking for anything monetary, but any kind of support with a like, share, subscribe, or even a DM on what I could be covering next, I'd really, really appreciate that, man.
Truth is not a thing that I can know objectively.
Okay, so I don't understand. When you say something is true, what does that mean?
Well, I do think there are different kinds of truth here.
Well, you're saying that you do feel different. You feel like you're in the matrix with modern day Christians. Like I believe that too. I believe that I believe that too, because they're interpreting it themselves. I agree like that. I agree. Modern Christians, the reason why I moved away from modern Christianity is because I seen a lot of it be antithetical to original Christianity,
That we're talking about.
And once you start looking at the historical timeline of the faith, you got to really start dealing with some stuff. And that's the problem. I think the main problem is a lot of these Christians have no concept of the history of the faith. They don't know where the Bible came from. They don't know how it was compiled. They don't know anything about they don't know anything about the history of the faith, which is really, really important.
And so, is it true that we are on a live stream right now debating? Yes, that's one kind of truth claim.
Okay.
I think categorically it's different when we're talking
tell myself
about
what's up. Tell myself what's up.
truths. Does God exist? What does God desire? That's a different kind of truth.
Why?
I think it's just obvious.
Well, I don't know what. It's not obvious to me. What makes them different as far as?
I'm not a philosopher, so you're not going to get me to use the correct language here and be able to dole out.
Well, I'm just trying to understand the view. I'm not even asking for a philosophical justification yet. I'm just trying to ask if there's a distinction between divine truth and the truth that we're right now having this discussion. What is it?
Because I think the divine truth claim ultimately comes down to a claim of faith. This experience that we are having a live stream right now, we can deduce from logic, reason, all those other things that help us function on our day-to-day lives.
Okay, so we're on a live stream right now because you know it?
Because I can see it, I can touch it, I'm talking to you. Yeah.
So then truth would rely on sense data then?
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay, well, what divine truth would not rely on sense data?
I don't think whether or not God exists is a truth claim that needs to rely on sense data, because I think a vast majority of people that believe in a God that exists don't have sense data that God exists.
Yeah, so what would make it true?
Faith.
Okay, so then is faith true? It's true that you have faith, but is the thing you have faith in true?
I think by the very fact that you have faith, I don't think you can answer whether it's true or not. It's a faith claim.
Okay, got it. So then when you say that claims about divinity are a different kind of truth, you're actually saying that, well, we have faith, and so they're not true.
No, I'm saying we have faith because we can't prove that they are true.
So then you can't ascertain that they're true.
Yes, that is what faith is, not being able to ascertain.
Okay, got it. So when it comes to scripture and when it comes to Christianity, all the claims that you're making, which are faith-based, you are stating right now are not true. Are not true.
No.
Okay, well then what would make them true?
The fact that we have faith in them, ultimately we believe as Christians that one day we will know the fullness of truth.
Okay.
This guy is floundering.
Yeah. So then we should ascertain here that everything that you're saying or about to say to me about scripture could not be, or may not be true, because it's based on faith.
I say it every single Sunday in my pulpit. Yes, that's exactly what I say.
So God may not be true.
Yes, God may not be true.
Jesus Christ may not be true.
Who's going to his
church? May not be true. I have faith. I don't have certainty.
Okay. And the ethics which you are basing your entire life on also may not be true.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And the only reason that you have them is because you have faith in them, right?
Absolutely.
So if somebody else does not share this faith with you, I just have a simple question for you. Why are they wrong?
I don't have a good answer for why they're wrong, except that my claims, I can hold up to them and say that if you're
he
causing
just
harm
won
to
the
another
debate.
person, and my faith claim says that you should love your neighbor as yourself, that to me seems wrong.
I see. So, and I think it's fair for you to get a cross-examination of your own, and I'll give you one. But the thing is,
And there's another scripture,
that
love thy
I
neighbor.
still don't actually understand this.
The
So,
love thy neighbor thing is crazy too. And I believe that's completely been misinterpreted as well. Completely misinterpreted.
if Christian nationalists make all of their claims of truth through faith,
Yeah.
what is your objection?
That I believe it causes harm to other people, that I believe it's anti-constitutional, and I do trust our system of government.
I see. So the reason that they're wrong is because they're going to do harm. So that then is what we're actually. So when we get all this kind of reduced, then here's what we figured out. Your actual objection to my worldview is that you think it's harmful.
I do, yes.
Okay. And we have deduced that your harm is a subjective metric, which you come up with through faith.
Not completely. I would argue that some of the things that you think are subjective are not subjective. I think psychological harm and psychological data is not subjective. I do think that
Psychological harm is not subjective, really.
no, I think it's very
Psychological. Yeah, that is subjective. How is he saying this is objective?
clear that if somebody is increasing in depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation based on an experience, that is something easily seen objectively.
But could you identify it and cure it?
Yes.
How?
Religious trauma therapy is something I help people with all the time and connect people to psychotherapy.
He's a pastor that gives religious trauma therapy. Are you going to his church?
Therapists all the time to do that.
Mm-hmm. And what is the cure rate?
Pretty high. My whole life is, I've benefited greatly from it. I can speak subjectively.
Mm-hmm. And you're cured?
Yo, Bon, you go to this church?
A lot better than I was 10 years ago.
That's not the question I asked. Are you cured?
I don't know what cure means in a psychological.
The disease no longer is there. The illness is not there anymore.
That's not the language.
It's not a disease. So what is it?
Explain.
It's a disorder. It's a trauma. There are other language that's used, but
Well, what else is a language besides illness? Something not right, something not correct. So you're operating incorrectly, right? You're malfunctioning in some way.
Less than the ideal, less than an abundant.
Okay, so what is that besides illness?
I think it's a semantics game. It's not a word that
Well, semantics are super important to debates for a reason. That way we have clarified language.
I'm not a professional debater. You are. So thank you for
Okay. So just let's clarify this real quick so that we have this down too. So we've deduced that truth is not only subjective, but that most of your worldview resides around faith, not just faith when it comes to God, but faith in human institutions as being true, or at least truth apt, maybe. There could be truth there.
If they're aligned with my central principle of loving your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah, and that's a subjective principle too, right? Because that might not be true.
There's no way to know it's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we're both subjectivists, let us assume for a moment that I was not a Christian at all. Amen. But rather that I was an atheist. Okay, a secular atheist, but held the exact same views, to the letter that I hold right this second.
Yeah.
How could you, the subjective observer who bases everything along faith and intuition, possibly object to me who's doing the exact same thing back?
A great argument. It's a great argument.
Talk to me a little bit more about what you're trying to ask.
Like he can't grasp it. He can't understand it.
What I'm saying is this in very, very plain language.
Let's go.
Yeah.
If I came to all the views that I currently hold right now, absent God or Jesus Christ or anything like this,
sure.
The only objection that you would actually hold against it is that it's against your preference.
That's it. Preference.
No, I would look at the harm as well. I believe.
Yeah, that's going to be a subjective metric.
That's preference too. Subjective.
Well, I do think that most metrics that we function by as human beings are subjective. Yes.
Yeah. So if it's a subjective metric, then from my subjective metric, I could just as easily deduce it's non-harmful.
I see we're talking about Christ and our faith in the comments. I'll just let you know where I am personally. I was not raised in the church at all. I wasn't raised in the church. I found Protestantism, and I found Protestantism and kind of lit a fire under me, and I started really like chasing truth, and then basically I started realizing that a lot of this is brand new. A lot of this is brand new since the Protestant Reformation. A lot of fundamentals are new. You know, the sola scripturas, the sola fides, this kind of stuff. These are all new fundamentals that were added into the faith. So I believe we started to get different results with the faith. So, you know, Christians are a lot less Christian than ever before because of these things. So I started doing my research, and I deduced that there is one true church, you know, and you can disagree with me all day, but even if you wanted to go from the utilitarian belief system and you start looking at what produces best results, it's not the modern day what you guys consider Christianity. It's the traditional Christianity, you know, the ones that we've followed for thousands of years.
And great, I'm glad you do that.
So if that's the case, how do you object from a person who says, no, it is? Let me give you an example. Do you think it's harmful to not label people with their correct pronouns?
Yes, but in a different,
he thinks it's objectively harmful to not affirm somebody like a transgender person, like to not affirm their pronouns. He thinks it's objectively harmful.
gradations of harm.
And what this is a crazy concept too, because hopefully Andrew gets into this, because this is interesting, and if he doesn't touch on what I'm thinking, then I'll bring it up in a little bit.
Sure, but do you also agree that it would be harmful from somebody who had religious values to not lie to tell them those pronouns?
There you go.
I would think that that's wrong, because I would say that
I'm not asking you that. I'm not asking you if you think it's wrong. I already know that you think it's wrong. I'm asking from the viewer's perspective, the person who you're asking to label them. If they think it's a lie, how can you demonstrate it doesn't harm them?
Well,
I'm glad that he brought this up. So again, let's say you're a Christian. Part of Christianity is doing everything you can not to lie, to be as honest as you possibly can. And so what happens is let's say you do meet somebody that wants you to affirm their pronouns or the gender that they're not. Let's say you meet a guy that thinks he's a woman. You telling him he's a woman and you knowing otherwise is you lying. And that could possibly be harmful to a Christian. That's never taken into consideration. The only thing that's taken into consideration is how harmful it is to not affirm the other person's delusion.
See, I wouldn't use harm as the only frame. I would also use, as you so brilliantly said in your opening, niceness as a frame.
And to celebrate this pastor, you know what I mean? To celebrate his former Christianity, I brought some Skittles with me. I'm going to eat some Skittles while this gay pastor tries to defend sodomy.
I do think there's value to niceness and kindness, and I do think it is unkind to refer to someone in a way that they do not want to be referred to.
Is it kind to ask people to lie?
I don't think it's a lie.
I know, but the other person, we've already ascertained you don't know if anything is true. We've already ascertained that.
Yeah.
So you could never tell a person who said, me saying to this person over here, giving them the incorrect pronoun harms me. It harms me. Yeah. In my mind, it harms me. It harms my psychology, or whatever the fuck it is, right?
Yeah.
You have no way that you could ever determine that statement is not true.
The way that you are articulating this debate, and I appreciate it and I understand what you're doing, but it's not the way people walk through the world.
It is.
No, it is not.
Yes, it is.
It is. Then why do you think we're fighting about this all the time? Do you think that people are fighting over pronouns because they just want to be mean? Or do you think that they're fighting over pronouns because they think that they're lying, and that there's a truth which we can clearly see as a truth, which is you are trying to mask this truth and pretend it's something other than it is, so they feel like they're compelled to lie? That is how people move through the world.
I think that what's actually happening here is that there is a group of people motivated by political power rather than religious conviction that have stoked fears for people about what pronouns mean.
Fear is harmful. You shouldn't. Here's the thing: if you're going to engage in a behavior which stokes fear, how's that not doing harm?
I think the only reason using pronouns stokes fears is because conservatives with YouTube channels have stoked the fears of people.
Perhaps, but if absent this behavior, they couldn't stoke that fear. Therefore, you're doing them harm.
What's the fear? This whole thing about fear. Where is this fear? When I do my street interviews, I get called homophobic. Phobia is an irrational fear. That's what a phobia is. Who is scared of gay people? Like I hate when they keep. I hate when they do this. When they say, you know, you're fearful or all. I'm not scared of gay people. Like, what am I walking my dogs and a guy jumps out of a bush and starts singing show tunes and that's what I'm going to stay in the house? Nobody's scared of gay people. We're just literally pushing back on what we consider immorality, especially when it's held up so high in the culture that I can't turn on the TV without seeing two dudes kissing. And for real, I think it's gross. I think it's absolutely like it's off-putting to me. So what? I'm a bigot now. I'm a homophobe because when I see two dudes in a borderline sex scene on Netflix, and I'm a bad guy for like turning the channel. Explain that. That's insane to me.
Because it's a subjective metric. Do you understand? Like, it's a subjective metric.
Yeah,
You can't make the demonstration that, oh, it's harmful to us if you don't do it, but at the same time not concede that it's harmful to us if we don't. Like, for me, I'm going to tell you, it's like, it's actually harmful to me when you ask me to lie about a person's sex.
It's true. It is harmful. How would it not be? I try to do my best to not lie. Like, I'm not saying that I don't fall short. I'm filthy rags, but I do my best to tell the truth and to not lie. If somebody comes up to me and says, affirm that I'm really a woman, for me to be like, yeah, you're really a woman, that's me lying, and that's harmful from what he's saying. I'm not going to say it's going to, I wouldn't do it. So it doesn't matter anyway. I'm not affirming. I'm not affirming delusion.
Right.
But also, can I just say, but I would agree with, like, I don't believe the government should compel speech either. So I don't think that this should be, I do think there's room for disagreement on the issue of pronouns. I don't think anybody should be.
That's right. Exactly. That's right, Scott. Rejection of something isn't a fear of it. They just do that to distract you from the real truth. And the real truth is there's a large part of the population that thinks it's off-putting. They think it's gross. Matter of fact, it's not just right. It's not just men. It's women too. I did these street segments where I would flip the whole question. I would ask men, I'd say, hey, if you found out in college that your girlfriend maybe fooled around with some girls in college, how would you feel about it? And the guys were like, oh, it's experimentation. It's not a big deal. Then I'd ask the women, how would you feel if in college your man had sex with other dudes? Every single chick that I interviewed was completely grossed out by it. Every chick, because of the man that they were with, them thinking about the man that they were with, doing that with another man, grossed them out. And again, I just was getting into like just getting into the honesty part about it. And yeah, it's not even about a religion thing. There's people out there that aren't religious that are off-put by it.
Forced by law to use language.
But this is very sneaky, isn't it? Because you still think that people they ought to do it because it reduces harm, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but why is it that we need to default to what you think reduces harm instead of the default to the other? So, for instance, there's way more people who don't want to use pronouns than people who do.
Exactly.
Way more people who don't.
I would like to see the data on that.
So if that is the case, okay, and it is the case that they don't want to go and use your fucking correct pronouns, right? They just don't want to. But let's assume for a second, right? In fact, we'll just assume I'm wrong, right? Yeah. But I'm just going to say this for the purpose of demonstration.
Granted.
Let's just say it was like 51%, okay? Yeah. Every time they used a pronoun that they didn't agree was true, that's going to harm them. Why is it that you don't default to them?
Right.
I don't.
Why is that the only thing that matters? The only thing that matters is a transgender in this specific situation, not the person that's lying to them. You know what I'm saying?
The way you're trying to use harm is a very interesting way.
What way should we use harm?
I think that there's a demonstrable harm that's being done. I'm not with.
Well, that's just saying the word as the
demonstrable harm that's being done by not affirming their gender. You're harming them so bad. Like what? These people. It's delusion.
Word.
Man.
What is harm here?
Can you let me finish for one second?
Yeah, but I need you to clarify that. What is harm?
I'm trying to clarify.
All right.
That.
All right.
So I think that there's a distinction between, and I agree. I think one of the problems on the left is that we have melded offense with harm. I don't think that being offended is necessarily being harmed. I don't think being feeling disrespected is necessarily being harmed. So
that's all
It's all it is.
misallocating a pronoun is offensive.
yeah, I think it's rude. I think it's not loving your neighbor as yourself. I don't.
Yeah, but it's offensive.
Again, not loving your neighbor as yourself. A lot of these biblical scriptures, a lot of them, context, timing, all of this. That's why it's really good to have, some a spiritual father, somebody that can break down what this stuff means. But loving thy neighbor, what in the biblical days, are you saying that somebody's neighbor was a cross-dressing, like a autogynephiliac that had a fetish by dressing up in women's clothes, that would walk up to people and say, "Tell me I'm really a woman"? Is that really their neighbor that they were talking about? Like, loving your neighbor is loving your neighbor, your Christian neighbor, because this is all context and time. It wasn't talking about if your neighbor was a radical, anti-God, whatever. That's not it. This is all about context and loving your neighbor. And then it's also about what is love. What is love? Is that pure acceptance, or does that come with like some accountability, some judgment to a degree, this kind of stuff? Loving your neighbor, you have a transgender neighbor, is probably saying, "Yo, Bob, you're not really, yo, Bob, you're not really Barbara. Nobody's buying it." That's what I would consider love. I consider loving your neighbor by being like, "Yo, Bob, I know you want to borrow my weed whacker, and you can, but you know what? I don't think that women should be out here cutting lawns, so I'm not going to let you use it." Just like that's just kind of a joke. But what I'm saying is I think that loving your neighbor would be not affirming their delusion. That's love to me, and that's love from the Christian. That's God's love. That's Christian love. That's how it's always been.
Just quickly, fellas, we're going to give it 5 more.
So I don't understand how this.
We'll go into Brandon's.
Yeah, how can this be an ought claim, Brandon?
Yeah.
That you say that I think that when you're offensive, right, that people shouldn't take offense, but at the same time say that it's rude in some way to not tell a person the truth about what their sex actually is.
Right.
So again, my claims are rooted in the person and the faith of Jesus Christ, and therefore I believe loving your neighbor as yourself means referring to them.
Do you think Jesus would affirm somebody? Do you think that Jesus would affirm somebody's pronouns? If Jesus came back right now and Jesus, oh man, I love you, Jesus. And do you think Jesus would say, "Go, sin no more, my sister," or say, "Yeah, you're my sister in Christ now"? Like, that's not. From what I get out of the Bible and what I get back from the church and the higher ups, is I don't believe that the Jesus of the Bible would affirm anybody's pronouns.
The way that they would like to. Now, I get your point that you think it's lying to them. And to that, I would say you have every right to believe that. That doesn't mean that it's not unkind to speak whatever you believe is true.
Don't you think that it's kind to not lie to people?
Yes.
I know that you think that, yeah.
Don't you think that?
I don't think it's a lie.
Do you think it's kind to not lie?
Generally, yes. But I don't.
Okay, great. So then if that is,
how is it not a lie?
Okay, well then demonstrate the truthfulness of it.
Yeah, tell me how exactly.
I think gender is subjective, and I believe that gender identity.
There's no truth.
Well, yeah, I think
if it's subjective, then there's no truth. So all you're saying,
I agree,
here's what you're
Scott.
actually saying is, based on the conditions of social relativity with.
Yeah, but what they want us to do, Scott, so we're called to love the sinner and hate the sin, but what they really want us to do is love the sinner and love the sin. That's what they want us to do. They want us to love the sin too.
In the society that I live, this is considered to be a social taboo, and so you should adhere to it because I don't like it. That's it. You're just saying the offense, the risk of offense here is trumped by the risk of offense to me because you just don't like it, Brandon.
I would actually say that there is biblical justification for where my worldview is rooted. And again, we can play in the philosophical space.
Why do we need to use biblical justification when the Bible may not, but it may not be true, Brandon?
Yeah,
I'm a Christian, and I do believe that Jesus's words are true.
Okay, can you demonstrate the truth of your Christianity?
So Jesus is. What about Paul's words? What about the apostles' words? Like, it's not like that's the Bible is not just Jesus' words. I'm not going to say that they weren't important, but the Bible is expansive. It's not just just Jesus' words that we're living by. You get what I'm saying? Because he gave authority to the apostles as well. So you listening to Paul is you listening to Jesus. And that's what people don't understand. They don't understand this. They like to pick and they like to choose. And yeah, they love to be apostates. They love to be apostates. They love to be syncretists. They love blending other religions into the Bible. You got Christian women doing yoga and crystals and all types of just, yeah, this is the modern state of Christianity, which I believe started with the slide into Protestantism and the Protestant Reformation. That's what you're going to get. Like, meaning that, answer this with me. If I go to California and there's a Lutheran church and they have a lesbian pastor that believes that Jesus is transgender because of how she's interpreting the Bible. She read the Bible and she got back that Jesus is transgender. I go to this church and she says, bow your head. Let's worship together. Let's worship Jesus. Are we worshiping the same Jesus? When I pray, am I worshiping a trans? This is just insane modernity. People that should have never had the authority or audacity to even be able to claim such a thing. You know what I'm saying? And now there is no authority, meaning that right now I could go start my own Christian church and I don't even need to use the Bible or, I don't even need to use that as the foundation of it. I can just interpret what I wish. And I believe that men we can do terrible and great things. And when a man's, kind of interpreting the Bible and has subjective morality, it can be very, 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 very dangerous.
For me?
Loving my neighbor as myself leads to abundant life, just as Jesus taught. I've witnessed that, experienced that.
Prove it.
I show it in my experience. I think
experience isn't proof. That's anecdote.
I think
it's anecdotal.
Prove it.
Experience is an authority. Yeah. It's one
experience is an authority on what?
Yes. This is, the Wesleyan quadrilateral. Experience is always.
Experience is anecdotal. Your personal experience does not necessarily reflect the truth at all. At all. When people say live your truth, that's your truth. It's just because you believe that 2 + 2 = 5 doesn't make it so. You know what I'm saying? And this is where we got this guy and he has a church. And I don't know how he has any members.
Been an authority for Protestants, of course.
Oh, help me out here. If somebody experiences great joy when they're murdering somebody, right? You couldn't trivialize that experience then, right?
No.
I didn't say experience is the authority. I said it's an authority.
Oh, well, what is the authority?
What's the authority?
There is no the authority.
Then you just contradicted yourself.
There's no authority.
You say experience is not the authority. There is no the authority. So if there is no the authority, you appeal to a authority, which again isn't even true by your own metric.
Yeah.
Is God.
You're appealing to God.
Yeah.
But God may not be true.
Yeah. That's why I have faith in God.
And not only that, if you believe that he's true, what did God say about homosexuality? What did he say about it?
Yeah, so what you're making here is an appeal to something you're not even sure is true. If you were to go, if the tenet is logic and science and reason, right? Do you think anybody who engaged in reason, if you walked over to them and said, I'm about to tell you something, but there's a possibility, and it's even a good possibility, it may not be true. I just want you to believe it because I have faith in it. Do you think that any reasonable person who uses reason would ever believe what you said after that?
Yeah, I think billions of people do believe that in various religions around the world.
That's not what I asked you. I asked you if a man of reason, pure reason.
I think
if you went over to him and said to him, I'm about to tell you something that may not be true, that he would say, oh, well, then I should believe that. No, right?
No,
not at all.
Think so. Yes,
you do think so?
I think that's what faith is about.
Okay. So very quickly, I'll wrap up with this, but so that we can get over to, your attack or whatever. So
I don't have an attack.
Here's a couple of questions I have from the biblical stance. And I'll read this out to you. I would like to know the answer to this. Ephesians 5:22-33. This is Paul's prescriptions on marriage, as you know. Okay. Wives, submit yourself to your own husbands as you do the Lord. If two gay men get married, who's the wife?
Who's the wife?
So you're trying to make a descriptive statement, a prescriptive statement. Paul is writing to a general heterosexual context. He's not addressing same-sex marriage relationships, which did not exist readily in his world, so he had no reason to address them.
Paul was in Rome, and so
Paul was in Rome.
back up. Peter when you're talking about Peter, you're talking about Paul. These people were dealing with cultures which
I'll be
were
right back.
inundated with homosexual relationships.
Not marriages.
Yeah, but no, not marriages, but they didn't make a prescription for marriage. So the thing is that are you just saying that Paul was only applying this to this particular people group and that's it?
Yeah, he was writing a letter to a specific.
So then if that's the case, then prescriptively, this shouldn't actually yield us any fruit for any marriage ever.
No, I think you're not hearing exactly what I'm saying. Paul was writing that letter to a specific church of which he was the founder and the pastor of. So he's writing about a question that was raised to him. That's what an epistle is a response to.
Sure.
And so someone asked a question about a husband and wife, and he's responding about husbands and wife. If he was asked a question about two men getting married, Paul certainly would have responded, but he was not asked that.
I see. So you don't believe that the idea of marriage is that the man takes the Christ head and the woman represents the body of Christ and the man the head. You don't believe that that's true in marriage?
I don't think that has to be limited to male.
So this is fundamental Christian truth. Fundamental Christian truth on what a marriage is. And this guy's like, nah, I don't really get it. I don't believe that. It's like, this is part of the fundamentals.
Or female.
Okay, so can you explain how that would work with males? Who would be the Christ head?
I don't think it's precisely how it works with male or female either.
Well, how does it work? You're the authority here. Tell me. No, I'm not interested. I want to. How does it work?
You're the one using a metaphor used by the Apostle Paul and taking it as an objective.
Now it's a metaphor? I thought you just said it was a descriptive claim that he was making based on the people group of the time.
You're using different verses. Paul can switch between linguistic styles as he's writing, and he does often. So when he starts talking about the head, the male being the head, do you actually think he means that the male is Christ? No,
it's a representation
of
the Christ head, and the woman is a representation of the body of Christ. So if it is the case, Brandon, that he's just silent on this, and this is, by the way, I would say Paul was kind of the authority on how it works with Christian marriage. This is how most Christians model marriage is after Paul. I just want to know, since he didn't give us anything on this, Brandon, what does Brandon think?
The irony.
Who is the representation of the Christ head in a gay marriage?
And that's one of the things you're going to see too. When you start seeing these people and they start talking about, they pick and choose the Christian, pick and choose, cherry pick Christian belief systems, they're going to reject a lot of things the apostles said, especially some of the things that Paul said. And again, this is over encompassing. You know what I mean? We're supposed to go. We're supposed to treat what Paul said with no delineation. It's the Bible. So that's what people don't understand. And because of personal interpretation, we are shot out now.
And who's the body?
I think that either person in a male or female relationship could represent Christ or represent the church. Of course.
Okay, so Paul was wrong?
Yeah, Paul's wrong on lots of stuff.
Oh, okay. So you just don't believe that Paul was correct about anything?
Nope.
He endorsed it. No, I didn't say that. See, how do you jump from that? This is the problem with your side. I say Paul is wrong on something.
Because
Paul was wrong on something.
Because the thing is that the Bible's self-referencing.
Right.
And because it's self-referencing, it has to build off of itself and it has to be coherent. It has to be coherent.
It's not a coherent book. It's a library.
If it's not coherent, there's no reason for us to believe anything that's stated in it.
That's such an absurd argument. It's ridiculous.
That's how any historian would view anything. By the way, why would you?
What the Bible is. You don't know what the Bible is.
I'm sorry. Help me out. Help me out here. I'm guessing you don't believe in Exodus, right? There's no actual physical proof that the Jews were ever in Egypt and that they were ever cast out, correct?
Right.
No, I think some of the growing historical consensus is that it was probably much smaller than the Exodus.
Well, they don't know. They don't know. The physical proof is extremely scarce, right?
Yes, sure.
Okay, but if you have foundations which are laid, foundations which are laid inside of something, and then one turns out to be false, the rigorism of the text itself should be in question.
The Bible is not self-referential. It is a library of texts. People didn't know that they were going to be part of one compiled text, especially the New Testament and the Old Testament.
So reject the whole. Then why wouldn't you reject the whole thing? Then
to try to say that the Bible needs to be univocal, it's not. It was never a book. It's a library.
No. You're what you're doing again is you're jumping ahead. I need you to address what I'm saying to you.
Yeah, address.
If you had any historical text in which a pillar which it rested upon ended up being false, would it not then be the case that you should question the rest of the historicity of such a text?
Right.
No,
No?
I think no, because I don't think the
Like, yeah, you're just cherry picking at that point. If you're saying, hey, you know what? Paul was wrong about this. What would make him right about the next thing?
How does
writer-
the historian
Can
verify?
I finish? Can I finish? The writer of Exodus was not intending to write history.
Mhm. Okay, so how would a historian verify the accuracy of a document?
There you go. This is smart.
What do you, in relation to Exodus, tell me what you're
In
trying
relation to anything, how would a historian verify?
You look for
what?
historical, archaeological truth. But that's in a historical text. Exodus is a mythological text, quite clearly.
So Exodus isn't true.
Yeah. That's
It
what
is
he's saying.
mythically true. I believe myths contain great truth.
Yeah, no. But I mean, it didn't happen in reality, in objective reality.
I don't think it did. No.
Okay,
Interesting.
gotcha. It didn't happen in objective
As
reality.
it's written.
So the thing is, right, is that if we're talking about Paul being wrong, if you say Paul's wrong on X, Y, or Z,
Yeah.
right, you're kicking a fundamental pillar out in which the rest of his text should be questioned, because any historic document in which you find that there's things in it which are not true or were wrong or incorrect, the rest of it needs to be questioned, right?
I agree. You should question all of it. That doesn't mean that there's not truth in it.
Mhm.
It just means you should be skeptical. You should question, of course.
So you think that the Bible's an
super
all-you-can-eat
subjective or,
buffet?
or subversive.
Like you just pick what you want and leave the rest behind?
No, I
cherry
think you
pick.
use good scholarship, which clearly it doesn't sound like you understand how to do. If you read
Oh.
Genesis 1, for instance,
Mhm.
Genesis 1 is a poem. It's a poetic, mythic text. So the fundamentalists who want to claim that it's now a historical, biological text that talks about how the creation of the world and the universe came about, they are misapplying a lens to the text that it was never intended to bear. It doesn't make the text untrue in the lessons
Is that? I wonder if that's what the early church thought. I wonder if that's what the early church thought.
it's trying to communicate. It just means it was not intended to be a scientific text. So you're forcing it into something it's not, which then makes it false.
So when we say truth, right, when you say something is mythically true,
Yeah.
are you saying that when you close your eyes,
For real, Scott, they'll choose one small verse but ignore the entire chapter it's part of. It's true. It's true. They'll bring up one scripture, but like the scripture right below it, they just nope, that can't be true.
and you envision a unicorn, right, that the unicorn is true because you're envisioning it, but it's not materially true. Like
think-
a unicorn doesn't exist in objective reality, right?
Let me use the metaphor that I would use, which is, because I think this is what we're trying to get at. In the myth of the boy who cried wolf, this is a fable. It is true, and it is not true. I think that is how much of the stories of the Hebrew Bible in particular function. It communicates a moral truth, but the story itself is not true.
You are
Yeah,
right.
no,
You
I
are
understand
right,
what you're
Bon.
saying. So in material reality,
Yeah.
the story itself never happened.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you think? Well, then this actually, I have a bunch of questions. Then
Lots
I don't
more.
even know if we'll have time to field them all. But
I
let's
know.
just start with this. How do you think that the world came to be then?
I think that God created the world.
In 7 days?
No,
How long?
I have no clue, and it's irrelevant to me.
Okay, but he did create it.
I believe that by faith, sure.
Yeah, and is that because he told you that?
No, I believe it by faith.
Just
How do you believe that? Oh, just by faith. That's why. Just by faith.
through faith. And so if I said, well, through faith, I don't believe he did that, I'm not wrong.
No, I think you're wrong, but that doesn't. I can't objectively say you're wrong.
It's terrible.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just leave it there and let you.
Silly.
I want to be fair and give you your chance.
Yeah.
So
No, these are good questions, and I appreciate your robust
And
dialogue.
we might have a chance to get back into it at the end if we get a little bit of time. But how are you guys going? Do you want to take a 1 minute break and go to the toilet or anything like that?
yeah, I could take a lead.
Let's move it forward.
Talking about legalism in this sense. Okay. What is the actual problem then with saying, okay, you can have the same legal statuses, we just don't call it marriage? What is the issue there?
I'm pretty ambiguous on this myself. I did advocate for gay marriage because I think if government's going to call it marriage, then that should be it. And from a religious perspective, of course, I do believe that it's not a sin to be gay. So we should have access to church marriage.
Where does it say that it's not a sin? Why is being involved in like lust with another of the same sex? How is that not sin? It says it pretty clearly in the Bible, and now we're talking about something as clear cut as marriage, which is described in the Bible as between a man and a woman. So the fact that they want to call it marriage, I don't think that gay people can get married because that's not, marriage is a religious institution. You know what I mean? So it just doesn't make sense to me. I also don't think that atheists, them getting married is really marriage either.
But in your tradition, queer people can't get married. They can in my
No,
tradition.
they
So
can, well, no, they can. No. In our tradition, sin is reflective of illness. We consider sin an illness.
Yeah.
Okay, and the church is the cure. That's the tradition of Eastern Orthodoxy.
okay.
We believe that the spiritual illness that homosexuals are suffering from needs to be treated.
Yep.
And so we would not be against homosexuals getting married, just not to men. They could get married
Yeah, it's
to
fair.
a woman, the same as a man,
Right.
totally equal. So
Yeah.
the church is actually giving you the same equal prescription. It's saying, hey, straight men can get married to women and gay men can get married to women. There is no bigotry here, sir.
Not at
It's
all.
the same exact case both ways.
He can't
Yeah, but
grasp
do you
it.
see the problem of how unfair it would be to have a gay man enter into a relationship with a heterosexual woman? And
They don't
not
have to. And why do they have to do that?
They don't have to.
Nobody says they have
Yeah.
to.
Well, you just posited the idea that gay men could get married to women.
Yes, and just like straight men can get married to women. So
Right.
the church is offering the same prescription to both. It's not excluding either from the prescription of marriage and who they can get married to. Gay men can get married to women and straight men can get married to women. Both of them can get married to women. So the prescription's not changing. What's the
No.
distinction?
The question is, don't you think it's unfair to a heterosexual woman to be in a relationship with a gay man who is not sexually attracted to her?
They don't have
Well, this would have to have a supposition that sexuality is not fluid or cannot be influenced. And I disagree significantly with you, sir, that these are innate and immutable.
Well, I
It's
also
very
agree.
clear that people have changed their sexual dynamics.
Yeah, you would have to call every person that has rejected their homosexual past, that has kids now, you'd have to call them liars. You'd have to be like, you're lying. You're really still gay. But yet they have kids, they rejected it all. You know, there's thousands of stories online of these men that have rejected this, consider it like some kind of form of sin, it was some kind of lust. Some of them say they were possessed. I don't know what everybody's reasoning for it is, but to say that now they're liars is crazy. How about this? There are a bunch of girls, they go to college, they think they're bisexual, they fool around, and then when they become adults, they're like, I was never gay to begin with. I was just, part of the culture. I was experimenting. They were never gay. They were never gay at all. They were never homosexual.
Through faith and have changed how they do things through faith and have changed how they do things through habit. And clearly you can do something about your proclivities. It's not something you can't do anything about.
Yep.
I think that's true for some people. I acknowledge that fluidity and sexuality exists.
If it's true for some people, could it be true for all people?
And for some people, that is a true story. I think bisexuality is demonstrable, obviously. But for those who do not have attraction to the opposite sex, I think it's unfair for them to, and I think mixed orientation marriages, anybody can Google that.
Well, what do you mean? What's unfair? Both of them can get married to women. That seems totally that's fair. Like if I say you can't do a thing, but I can do the thing. Wait. Well, let's just clarify this. If I say I can, well, you don't get to make the value assessment of what's unfair from a woman's preference. The church isn't forcing women to marry gay men. The woman would be wanting to marry the man and the man the woman. So I don't even know how you can make a claim it's unfair. To make a claim of unfairness,
and that's a good thing too, Scott. Life is not based on fairness. It's messy and cruel. God's teachings help us know how to live and make it a better place. I agree. Life is never fair. Our reality that was created for us, the idea of equity and fairness for all and all this, it always falls short. It's not reality.
You would have to say, Andrew, you can do a thing in the church that I can't do. No, sir, I can't. You can't marry a man and I can't marry a man. I can marry a woman and you can marry a woman. So there, what there is unfair. It's completely fair.
I do, again, and I would posit that it is.
And the worst part about it, a lot of the, if you actually look at the data of like gay people getting married, it's not a lot of them, but most of them aren't religious at all. Like they're not religious at all. They just want the moniker of marriage. They just want something. It's not, you know what I mean? They get to have it. They're like little kids. Why can't we get married? They get to have marriage. Why can't we? It's like, be adults.
Unfair for a lesbian woman to marry a straight man or for a gay man to marry a straight woman because they
don't have to.
Exactly. But I'm saying, and also at the core, this also comes down to the obviously theological and biblical difference here. That is at the core of where your tradition, some in your tradition, there are affirming Orthodox people, of course, but some in your tradition believe that the Bible and tradition say that.
There is not. No, there's not. No,
Yeah,
listen.
there are. I can recommend
maybe schismatics, but the authority on this has been laid down from the church, and there's an official position on this. You are not to be practicing homosexual in the church as a baptized. Now, it's not to say that there's not people who suffer from recidivism or of sin, right?
Backslide.
Or they can't have lapses, that the church is going to assist with those ailments. Of course it is. That's not what they're saying. But they're saying that you cannot be openly saying that it's perfectly acceptable to be a homo.
And that's the difference. There's two different things here. There's one that I respect, and there's one that I don't respect at all. A gay Christian. That's what I don't accept it or respect it at all. I would respect a person that backslides, that deals with lust and, is ashamed of their sin and, this kind of stuff and is continually battling it. I respect that person much more. But the person that says like, there's this place in my life, my sexuality that God can never change and I'll never give it up to him. I just don't respect it and I don't understand it. You know what I mean?
Homosexual and an Eastern Orthodox Christian and advocate that these are reconcilable. The church does not have that stance. Nowhere.
Theologically, tell me how you get there.
So here's the thing. We can look at scripture for the theological aspect here, but the thing is the value assessment to me now for using a scriptural argument doesn't really matter much. And here's why. Because the evidences which are convincing to you are external to scripture itself, right? Us utilizing it, even if I were to concede to your points, for instance, if we're already in the vague.
Like, yeah, he's saying there's no point of bringing up scripture because you believe you cherry pick and you believe that it might not even be true. So what's the point of continually going back to something that you believe might not even be true?
Address here that, well, this could maybe not be true anyway, then you can just simply switch to your position to the secular idea that, well, wait a second, I still have to use reason and science and psychology and all of these kind of end up with my harm principles. So you're mixing and conflating two different forms of ethics. So from the position of Christian ethics, why it is the case is less, or how even the Orthodox Church gets there, is less valuable then, from your view and from mine, than whether or not we can demonstrate actual harm or unfairness here. So how is it the case, sir, that it would actually be unfair to tell men they can only marry women and women they can only marry men regardless of their sexual proclivity? How's that unfair?
I think you're mishearing that argument. But the question I want to ask you is about how are you defining faith?
So in the Orthodox lens or in the layman's lens?
How you, in your day-to-day life, think about the word faith. What does it look like?
Yeah, so I tie faith, the Eastern Orthodox lens, and I'm not the authority, and I don't speak on behalf of the church. I want to make that clear. But I'll give you my best understanding. Yeah. Faith is tied with theosis. Theosis is tied with partaking in the energies of God. Sure. And that these are the
and I don't know if you guys know what theosis is. Theosis is like a Christian fundamental that has basically been taken out of the faith, and it's a continual let me give you the best definition for it. But theosis is like you're growing, you're becoming more sanctified throughout time. You're a better Christian tomorrow than you are today through growth. So theosis, Orthodox. Theosis is a central purpose of human life in Orthodox theology, describing a transformative process of becoming united with God and partakers of the divine nature of grace. It is a lifetime journey beginning with baptism and continuing after death of becoming by grace of what God is by nature, not by essence. but by participation is uncreated energies. So it's basically, yeah, it's kind of different from today I'm saved and you know, I'm good to go. Like I'm going to heaven, I'm saved. That's like a newer teaching. In the past, it was something called theosis.
The affirmations of faith and what faith means. Now, if you just want like the layman, what is faith? It would be a unjustified belief from a secular perspective, or it could perhaps be a justified belief absent evidence, but we would tie it to belief.
Right. Okay. And so that's part of this whole, in your cross-examination, the part that I honestly don't get, and maybe it's because I'm dense, but help me here.
You're definitely dense.
If we are people of faith, we are admitting that there are things about God that we cannot know for certain, and yet we have faith that they are true. Isn't that the basis of what faith is?
No, I think that there's good philosophical evidence. So I came to Christianity logically, long before I came to the faith aspect of it.
Same
so
as me.
The thing is like there's
same as me. I found my faith through, like, yeah, I kind of I followed the logic and the truth, and everything that I was like reading, and everything pointed me to the faith. Everything pointed me to, oh my gosh, this is right. Christianity's right. It's the right. This is the truth. And yeah, it wasn't. So I didn't have God come down and have some kind of spiritual intervention. Nothing like that happened. Now, through my journey, I've had things happen to me that you know we can get into at some other point. But yeah, how I found faith is I kind of deduced it.
Really good philosophical evidence, I think, for Christianity being true, and for God most certainly being true. Like there's really good evidence for this. So no, I don't think that it's contrary to logic or it's contrary to reason. I mean, secularists and Christians both are going to end up in the same position using inductive reasoning, that something uncreated created everything. Like that's just inductive reasoning. There's no way around that. So the thing is like, then we quibble about, well, you know, could it be this or could it be that? Regardless of those things, though, I would say that revelation is true. You agree that revelation is true. And there's been divine revelation in my life that orthodoxy is true as well, though I would not use that normally in a debate because ultimately this would be anecdotal evidence. I would use other evidences. And
you're also appealing to people that don't believe in the same thing as you. So when I ever do get into the debates, I come from the secular aspect, because I'm not going to, when somebody's like, oh, why don't you agree with homosexuality? I'm not going to sit here and say, because it says it in the Bible. It just doesn't work, because these people don't hold the Bible as true. They don't hold it up. You know, they don't hold it. So, you know, these arguments I'd come from a utilitarian secular view, and yeah, God gave us logic to use, you know.
In this case, though, we're talking about LGBTQ in the church. I haven't actually seen you demonstrate how it's harmful for them not to be included.
Right.
As far as they must be able to have sex with each other, or else it's not fair.
Well, the foundation of my argument is that it's not a sin according to the Christian scripture. As a Protestant,
where do you get
that? Is ultimately, we don't have a long tradition of robust authority or tradition that we're appealing to. So scripture.
You hear what he just said? He just told the truth about Protestantism. They don't have long tradition. They don't have the authority. And from his Protestant view, homosexuality is not a sin.
Scripture alone is how I came to this conversation as a Protestant. And my study of scripture was that based on culture, context, and original languages, the Bible's not condemning same-sex relationships that are consensual and loving. Therefore, the question that I then asked was, why is the church condemning this? And that is where I get to the place that if scripture's not condemning this and there is no moral harm from two men being in a consensual relationship, why should we continue?
Yeah, so this is the point that I'm focusing on is the harm, right? Yeah. So I'm just granting, for the sake of argument here, we'll just grant that that I come to the same conditions in my brain, absent any faith in Eastern Orthodoxy or faith in Christianity at all, and still think there's actually not any harm in churches excluding LGBTQ individuals from participating in sexual activity with each other. Like there's no actual harm there, and saying you can't join up if you can't keep your dick in your pants with, like, what's the harm? Like what is the demonstrable harm here?
Yeah, precisely. And that's the question. But what is the harm?
That's what I'm asking you.
There
If you
is-
say
my position is there is no harm in same-sex couples having sex with one another
oh
consensually.
no, well that no,
He's saying, what's the harm of churches excluding this?
there's tons of harm in that. So
There's definitely harms in that.
I would love to hear
let's start with normalcy, right? So you want society needs to operate based on regularity. Like, you agree that that's true, don't you? There needs to be regularity in
I
society.
think regularity changes and evolves. That's demonstrably true.
Not quickly.
I've had this debate with people so many times, and the only appeal that they have where I'm like, give me one pro to homosexuality, it's always been an emotional appeal. There's not one actual pro for society at all. Zero. There are zero pros to homosexuality. And when I ask people that affirm this, give me one good thing. Give me one thing that it produces. Like, how do you know something's of God? Is it produces good fruit. Give me some good fruit that homosexuality produces. And they can give me none. It's always emotional appeal. Love is love. And, like, what about people's you being able to, show love? It's just all emotional. They don't ever give me back the STD rates, the lack of having children, any of the other negatives. They never say that. And when it comes down to it, pros and cons, it's all cons, no pros.
No, not quickly, which is
Not
why
quickly.
Yeah.
So, but regularity does not evolve quickly, and it can't, because then people would go into a panic and this type of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
Reproduction is a keynote for a society to sustain itself. There's no way around that. You have to have reproduction. You have to. There's no reason for us to, in any way, shape, or form, if it offends the societal sensibilities, if it offends societal sensibilities for there to be gay pride parades, if it offends societal sensibilities in any way, shape, or form, to have the promotion of LGBTQ, I can't see a good conceivable reason why society cannot just summarily reject it. It doesn't seem like it would be particularly harmful to society.
I don't think it would be.
It seems like there's a lot of bonuses. Like, here, I'll give you a hypothetical to demonstrate this.
Let's go.
Right?
Yeah.
I like these hypotheticals.
You said you would marry as many men as wanted to marry each other, right?
I would not frame it in that way, but yes.
Yeah. Okay. What if all men wanted?
Polyamory is not
So
necessarily.
what if all men wanted to marry each other and only each other, and didn't want to marry women? Would you marry them all?
I don't think that's how homosexuality works.
But if it
He's
were the
saying, what
case, would you
if?
marry them all?
I don't even know how to answer a hypothetical. That
can't do
hypothetical that all men wanted to marry each other.
Yeah. Why? Why can't you answer it?
Just answer.
It's a simple question.
Yeah.
It's
No,
not
honest.
logically
It's really
impossible. It doesn't create a contradiction.
I do, because
It is possible that let's say there's
it sounds like you
possibly.
think that homosexuality is a choice, which is our fundamental difference. I don't think that there's going to be an.
Well, it isn't. Let's just say it's immutable, and the gay gene just like for some reason spreads like
Just
wildfire.
spreads, yeah.
I don't think there's a
and-
gay gene, but
If there
You can't
was,
just
right,
track,
and then
dude.
now hypothetically, all men want to get married to each other, and they don't want to marry women anymore. Would you marry all of those men who wanted to marry each other?
I don't even. I don't even
He's
know how to
stuck.
answer this hypothetical.
He's
It seems
stuck.
too
Okay, well let's try to make it less absurd then. All men wanted to marry one other man but didn't want to marry women anymore. Would you marry all of those men who wanted to marry one other man?
Again, on one side of the coin, I don't believe that there's a moral harm in men marrying one another. On the other side of the
Got it.
coin, if we're getting to the reproduction question, I think we would have a societal issue if everybody was.
If it was good, then and if it was good, then all people should be able to do it, right? If it was good, then all people should be able to do it, and if all people did it, it would end it would end human civilization. So he can't track it.
Homosexual all of a sudden.
Agreed. Now let's reverse it like that. Homosexuality is gone.
Right.
It just disappears one day. Okay. And now all of the homosexual men marry women. There's lots of benefit there, not a single harm. Whereas in the reverse,
See?
if we did it in reverse, it would mean the extinction of humanity.
Yeah.
So if we
But-
were to take what you say is the harm to God's creation, right? The reflection of God's creation. If all men marry women from now on until the end of time,
Yeah.
clearly that is a representation of a non-harm principle in the image of God, because that's the only way you can reproduce, right? Is for
Right.
man to stick penis in vagina, right? That's the only way that can happen.
There's no other way.
But the other way, it's not. So if all men turned gay, that could not glorify
Not at all.
God's creation, because reproduction would necessarily go away.
Told us to be fruitful and multiply, not to. I can't even describe like what. It's just gross. It's absolutely disgusting.
But in God's good wisdom, God has only created 5 to maybe 10% of the population. That has been a stable general number throughout the past
That's not
however
true.
many thousand
It could
years.
change,
That's not true.
and
But
it
it
is
hasn't.
increasing. You don't know.
That's not true at all. That little 1% has jumped quickly to 10%. So, and also and here's another thing too, it varies by state. So if this was so natural, why are there more gays and transgenders in places like California than there are in Kansas? If it was so natural, you would just see it blanket, like evenly apply. If it's so natural, how come gay parents are more likely to have gay kids, or not gay, adopted parents having gay kids, or transgender parents having transgender kids? It's like, this is all, it's what they call societal decay. It's a cultural phenomenon that's turned into to absolute decay.
Oh, it has. In fact, with
10% is not a
cultural
threat to
contagion, they
the
call it.
population.
let's take the trans phenomenon. For
Trans is
instance.
very different than sexuality.
Yes, but most
just track
trans
it.
are homosexual men.
Yes.
If they are
Autogynephilia.
the M to F, they are, well, by definition, they're engaging in same-sex activity.
Yeah, if it's so natural, if transgenderism, I've heard it's so natural, why would you have to take drugs and have to have like surgeries to affirm? You know what I'm saying? If it was natural, somebody that was like, hey, I feel like a woman, they would just like their penis would invert and turn into a vagina. If it was just so natural, you know what I mean? If homosexual relationships were so good, then you'd be popping out kids out of your butt.
Now you can make this clarification.
Stupid. It's just dumb.
Yes, it is true.
No. I don't
Yes.
think you know very many trans people.
This is what the literature says. Most
Love to see that.
most M to F transitioners continue to sleep with males.
Yep.
I'll grant
That
you that.
would be homosexual by definition. So homo meaning same,
Well,
right?
Not if they're
Same.
female, not if they've transitioned to female.
Well, they wouldn't be female.
They are.
No.
No, they're not. Not even gender ideology would say that they're
consider-
female.
Yeah, you can't change your sex. He's messed up. He's saying that you can change your sex and not your gender now. Even he's confused. He's more confused than me. Meaning that, like, is it straight to stick a woman's penis in your mouth? Is that a straight thing to do? Like, he doesn't understand that female and male is something that even the trans people don't really, you can't change that part. You can't change your DNA.
Gender identity wise, they are female.
No, they would just say they're women. They wouldn't say they're female. Female is a sexual categorization.
Concede that.
So
He's confused.
yeah, so that makes no sense. They're
He's more
not
confused.
females for sure. Okay, so even then, and you can see the uptick in this since
Yes.
trans ideology has come out, which means there is at least some evidence towards social indoctrination.
Yep.
And the thing is like when you take into account things like unaliving. Let's take unaliving, for instance. This would be a great harm by not affirming trans identity. However, if this was truly an immutable characteristic, we should have seen teens who had this immutable characteristic in the 20s and 30s unaliving themselves, and they weren't.
That's the thing, is you see, like they say that transgenderism's always been the same and it's always existed. But yet the suicide, the unaliving rates don't represent that at all. They don't represent it at all. Meaning that throughout time, you would have had this rate of unaliving that only exists now.
Which either A, means that social stigma really works well as a counter to the idea of you unaliving yourself, thus reducing harm, or it's not immutable. So that there's like only really two ways
to
you can walk away from that with those outcomes. So here's my question. If it were the case, even 5 or 10%, there's no logical reason for us to assume it could not grow higher. There's no reason for us to assume that. And if that
Except
is the case, go ahead.
Except for the stability of those numbers over generations and generations.
We don't know what the stability of those numbers are over generations. We only recently started
Concepts of sexuality. Yeah,
we only recently started keeping tabs of this as it became a social phenomenon.
Yes.
right. So
Um,
your argument is based
what
on
you're
fear.
making is an estimation.
Yeah, but so your argument is based on fear that that number is going to increase such that there's not going to be any more heterosexuals.
No, that's not what he's saying. And it's not about fear. Stop saying this fear thing. There's no fear. Nobody's scared.
The world, and the population's going to end. That seems
Yeah, well, what I'm saying to you is that if hypothetically it were the case that homosexuality increased to the point where you could no longer sustain society because people were not having sex with women, men were just preferring to have sex with each other, and that's it. Okay.
And remember, like, I don't want to appeal back to the Bible, but this was talked about. And when things are going to eventually, you know, the end times type stuff, that's what this was talked about. That these kind of proclivities will be on a huge uptick.
And by the way, this is a valid argument, which is brought up against inceldom, that there can't be any male incels because they could have sex with each other, right? I mean, that is an actual logical argument for this from your view.
Yeah.
So it is logically possible. Well, I don't understand why you say no. That's a logical argument.
Because the way you're thinking is, it seems like what you're positing is that sexuality is a choice. That's not an argument I make, so I don't think.
Okay, so it's
are
immutable.
heterosexuality.
There's no reason for us to believe then, if it's immutable, that you couldn't have this immutable trait passed down to the point where over time, let's say 300 years, it was 51% of the population is now homosexual, something like this. Your reproduction rate is in the toilet. And since it's immutable, you don't want to sleep with women, you find it revolting or whatever. You could see how that would not be a great reflection of God's design, because there wouldn't be reproduction going on, right?
No, I think if that
How is this God's design? How is it God's design when gay men have to wear older gay men have to wear diapers? How is this God didn't design our bodies to do what these guys? Yeah, that's not what our bodies were designed to do at all. How is it God's design? God did not design man to be like, hey, this one area that's for using the restroom. Also you're gonna be. Yeah, we weren't designed to do this. Our bodies weren't designed to do this at all.
that did happen, it would be God's design. That's the only way it would happen.
So if all men, let's just say, turn gay tomorrow, right? Let's just say
that must be from the will of God, of course.
From the will of God. Okay, so then if society went extinct because of it, you would marry all those men, right?
It'd be the will of God.
If society went extinct, there's no marrying of anybody. So.
Yeah, I know. But if the cause of you marrying these men led to the societal extinction, you just wouldn't care, right?
No, that would just be the will of God. Clearly, do you understand in my argument that if you believe that sexuality?
So he's saying that everything negative as well is the will of God. Where does the evil one come into this? Where does the God of this world come into this?
Is innate, then it's
Lowercase
created by
g.
God. Therefore, if all of humanity became homosexual, that would have to be God's will. So yes.
Is it God's will that you have to act on it?
I believe that homosexuality as it exists, just like heterosexuality, is God's will, and therefore we're also wired and intended for a relationship.
Do people have to act on heterosexuality?
I think a vast majority of people are wired for sexual relationship. I think
I'm not asking if they're wired. Like, I'm wired to punch people I don't like in the face. Does that mean I have to punch people that I don't like in the face?
I reject that you're not wired that way. I think.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't hung out with straight heterosexual men. We are wired that way. We are wired to punch somebody in the face. We just are. Doesn't mean we do it. We should do it, but that's how we're wired. Again, and the same guy that's PDF, he could say he's wired a certain way. Does that mean he should do it? You know what I mean? All these sexual deviancies, there's lots of them. Those people are wired to do it, so they should. That's God's will. It's God's will. What is this guy talking about? And remember, he's a pastor.
I think that's
okay. Well, what about alcoholics? They're wired to be alcoholics, but they don't. But many of them abstain from alcohol. Like, clearly, you can be wired towards an activity and then not do the activity.
Of course, yeah. Celibacy is a choice. You can choose to do that. I don't think marriage or relationship is mandated, but for those for whom it is a natural wiring for them, because homosexuality is not a sin, I believe that they should engage in those relationships.
Okay, right. So then the idea here is that What you're really advocating for is that men should be allowed to have anal sex with each other, and the church shouldn't condemn it.
Yeah, that's all.
Right?
That's
Well,
what he's
I
really
believe
saying.
they should be in loving, consensual relationships with one another. Yes.
Okay,
I don't know
what does that mean, though?
Can
What
I
does
ask?
that mean?
It is fascinating to me that you and so many of the folks that seem to follow you on Twitter are so fascinated with the sexual part, the
No, it's just the most vulgar part to put out there because that's what this all boils down to. That's the main contention. The main contention is that. That's the main contention. And yes, it is gross. It's disgusting. But nobody's saying that two men can't love each other. I love my bros. We're bros. That's my guys. I love my friend. I love my male friends. I actually love them. But that doesn't mean that doesn't mean that we're doing the grossest thing. Yeah, there's a difference here. And what he doesn't understand is nobody's telling men that they can't love other men. What we're saying, what Christians are saying from the Christian precept is you can't have sex with them. That's the difference. He just doesn't get it. He doesn't grasp it.
anus and the penis that you love talking about. Why are you reducing it to the sex act and
all
not
it is.
also considering what it looks like for gay men or gay women?
Question. I'll answer it for you.
Yeah.
Because ultimately what you're discussing here, if you had two really close male friends, okay,
yeah,
and they just loved each other. They thought that the other guy was great. They loved being in each other's company all day. They did everything together, but they never had sex. They wouldn't be homosexuals. They wouldn't be.
Yeah,
well,
so
they would just be close friends. So really, when you reduce the position from your end down, it's not that you're advocating for love between men. Men already love each other. The advocation is actually that the church says that it's perfectly acceptable for you to insert your penis into a man's anal cavity or suck him off. Like, that's the truth. It reduces to it. Like, okay, then absent the sex, what are we talking about here?
To be very frank, I think there's
That's all it
something deeply
reduces to.
disturbing about the fact that it needs to be reduced to sexual from your end.
That's all it reduces to.
Would you say that a male and a female can't just be in a relationship and not need to have this applies across all relational patterns? Yes, you can have people that are just friends, same sex.
Right, but when we're talking about marriage,
yeah,
right, when in the church capacity, literally what is assumed in that, what's baked into the cake there, is the distinction between you and a female friend, right? The reason this is your wife is because you're going to have sexual intercourse with her. You're going to reproduce. This is the one person you're allowed to do that. Listen, reproduction is the key.
Yes.
It's a key point. It's not the only point, but it is a key point.
This guy just thinks that he says he's Christian, but he's reducing us to just animals, saying that just because we're attracted to it sexually means we should have sex with it, which is insane.
And so the thing is like, are there relationships between men and women that are non-reproductive? Yes, but they reflect the relationships of those that are reproductive. Homosexual sex does not do that. And ultimately what you're doing is your worldview does reduce down to, you want the church to give permission for the sex. If that was not the case, then you would just advocate that men be really good friends.
That's it.
Well, I do advocate for that as well, but
we have no problem with that.
I will concede to that point that, of course, yes, I do believe that same-sex sex is not sinful.
That's the church doesn't care if two guys are bros. There's like male bonding trips and shit that they do. They're not sharing the same tent, and this isn't Brokeback Mountain. So the one thing that we're talking about is the sexual act, which is what the church doesn't agree with and rejects.
But it's not just the sex that we're advocating for. It is for the relationship. It is for...
Just quickly, fellas, in about 10 minutes, we're going to get to closing statements. So, Brandan, you've got 10 more minutes, whatever questions that you wanted to ask in terms of your cross-examination. Then we'll get to some closings and we'll get to Super Chats.
Yeah. I mean, this one, you're going to think this is nonsensical. But if I had objective evidence to prove that LGBT inclusion was not harmful and it actually fostered spiritual growth in people, would you be willing to reconsider your position?
I think, well, what you're asking me, I think, is logically impossible.
It's impossible.
Okay. So worldviews are dependent upon logical possibility.
Yeah. It's illogical.
So if you were to, let's say, you say, Andrew, I don't know, like can contradictions exist or something like this? Or you asked me a hypothetical which entailed a contradiction, I wouldn't be able to answer it for the same reason, because logical possibility can only exist within the purview of the worldview you have.
Yep.
So in this case,
I agree with that, Scott. Having guy friends is an important part of life for men. Yeah, just friends, exactly. Especially if you want to have like you want to tell jokes and have like a sense of humor with your friends. You get what I'm trying to say? That's the reason why I tell men, like, this is my take. I think that men that have girlfriends are weird. I think that guys that they're either one of two things: sneaky effers, which is it's just a mating strategy. You know what I'm saying? Or they can't fit, they can't have good friendships with men because men hold them accountable, and it's a completely different relationship. So, yeah, I think that men that have girlfriends, I think it's weird, and I think it's unnatural. You get what I'm trying to say? I think the girls that we're entertaining should be our wives, should be our potential wives, girlfriends, these kind of things. Other than that, like, what's the point? The friendship that you have with this girl, you could have a better friendship with a guy. And not only that, the key factor is if you take these friendships, these guys that have girlfriends, that, friends that are just friends, if you put them on a desert island, they might not be friends for too long. That's kind of the point. Like, you're not having a true friendship with somebody that you have the potential to have sex with. And yeah, and we can break this down and extrapolate it so many different ways, but all my men, reevaluate your life. If you're sitting around here talking about, I have girlfriends. No, dog, you're weird. You're weird or gay.
Case, I would say this is actually logically impossible that this could ever be demonstrated, and logically impossible that this could even happen. It's not even possible within the confines of the worldview. So no, the answer is no, because it's not possible.
But you've asked me a lot of things that are logically not possible.
No, they're logically possible.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the support, man.
There's lots of
Let me know where let me know if you want me to subscribe or do anything,
logically impossible that I've asked you from your view.
Thank you again.
You're not willing to concede that if there was evidence that LGBT people experience spiritual growth, LGBT relationships flourished as spiritual relationships in the Christian tradition, that would not be enough to have you reconsider.
I wouldn't believe it. I would think it's illogical.
Consider your view.
No, I'm saying that you're asking me, what if fire wasn't hot?
You're asking me if all the men in the world turned gay and all of a sudden...
It's logically possible from your viewpoint. Where's the contradiction? Where's the contradiction to your worldview? Where is it?
Point.
It's not. No, it's not absurd.
It is.
The point of a hypothetical. The point of a hypothetical is to test the logical consistency of the other person. Because you're testing the logical consistency, the view in which the logic resides, right? It only has possibility based on the view. Okay. Period. So you can imagine if somebody created a religion that said aliens can't exist. Okay. Our religion is the religion again.
Yeah, and do me a favor, if you guys are watching this, do hit the like bell, do subscribe, throw a comment in there. I'm new to this. This is completely out of my wheelhouse. I went from a, man on the street debater interview type thing to now having like a live stream, and I'm trying to commit to this. I'm trying to put out more content and be consistent. So just, all you can do to help, man, is just hit the like, subscribe. And it'll just keep me motivated. You know what I mean? Because regardless, I'm going to try to be as consistent and do this for 9 months and keep pushing it. Keep pushing it because everybody has something to say. Everybody has something to say, and I think that there's a little niche for me out there. So I do appreciate you sticking around. Thank you so much, Scott.
Against aliens existing. That's our entire religion. All of the logic and apologetics, which revolves around the idea of aliens not existing, literally starts with the foundation they don't exist. So then if you ask them, well, what if aliens existed? It would be an illogical question from their view.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yes. What it sounds like to me is that both of us have constructed worldviews, and your worldview is constructed in such a way that there is no possibility that you're going to get to a place where you can accept and affirm LGBT people.
No.
I think we knew that at the beginning of
the video. Wait. Accept. I can accept that LGBTQ people exist. I can accept that there are men who have a proclivity to have sex with each other. Mm-hmm. I accept all of this as being true. What I don't accept is the idea from your view that you can demonstrate. So let's just say I even bit the bullet. right, and said, okay, it somehow it is logically possible from my worldview that this could happen, that including homosexuals into the church itself is somehow going to make the church way better and assist with the spiritual health of everybody and blah, blah, blah. Let's just say that I assume this for a second, just for the sake of argument, right? So what? Like, what does that prove? You necessarily as the one who wants to be the arbiter of change, as the radical who wants to make the introduction of the new thing to the old thing. The burden is on you to demonstrate why we should, not on me to demonstrate why we shouldn't. We already don't. It works fine, right? There's no problem here that I can see. And you have not yet once demonstrated any unfairness. You haven't demonstrated that there's actual harm. You haven't demonstrated anything.
I can, but the problem is that you cut the foundation of the evidence because you don't believe psychology.
Let's go over the evidence.
I can give you psychological data.
I need the evidence. That's all I need. I've talked to a lot of people about the same thing. Give me evidence. Give me a pro. Give me one single pro for homosexuality besides I get to cum. I get, you know what I mean? I get sexual satisfaction, which doesn't necessarily mean it's good. Just because it makes you feel good doesn't necessarily mean that it's good.
Reports that show consistently that rejection from the Church of LGBT people results in higher rates of mental illness, suicidal ideation. Jesus says, by the fruit you shall know a teaching. And clearly, if the teaching of the church is producing psychological harm in LGBT people, to me, that seems pretty damn basic that must be a bad teaching.
Those are the people that are unwilling to change or let God change them. Those are the people that are unwilling. They're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. And yeah, that's got to be hard.
But here's the problem with this. There's a logical problem you have right away. Even assuming psychology bore good fruit, right, and wasn't pseudoscientific nonsense.
Soft science.
Let's just assume for a second that it wasn't, okay? The issue that you have is show me the counter study on the harm of the people who are in these congregations, right, and the harm that they perceive by allowing these people in. That doesn't happen. And do you know why those studies are not conducted? Because the harm principle here is not consistent, because most of the funders of these studies are, you guessed it, LGBTQ groups, aren't they? In fact, I bet you anything that any of these studies, psychological studies that you're going to produce, and I'm happy if you produce them, I will literally send them off right this second, and we'll find the source. And I can almost guarantee you that there's going to be one of two sources, and both of them are going to be gay advocacy groups.
No, not the American Psychological Association or the American Psychiatric Association. But again, you're already cutting out this because you have I'm actually stunned that you don't believe that psychology is
the former head of the American Psychological Association came out as a whistleblower years ago and said that gay conversion therapy was bearing a lot of fruit, and that activist groups were able to infiltrate.
You hear that? And they stopped that. Conversion therapy has helped a lot of people. And there's a lot of data to show that it was. And yeah, got shut down.
Into the AMA with their political agenda to declassify homosexuality as a mental illness.
And it used to be considered a mental illness. So did transgenderism. It used to be considered a mental illness.
That this was from outside agitation groups who were pushing
one source versus dozens upon dozens of studies over the past 20 years.
The thing is that most of these studies are not reproducible. They have a publishing bias. The publishing bias is often based around the funder. You can imagine if I said, well, I have tons of studies which are funded by Christian nationalists that say, it hurts the psychology of Christian nationalists if we're not allowed to not have LGBTQ in our church. You would immediately say, wait, this is bias. That's unreasonable. This is ridiculous. You would say the exact same thing. So the thing is like, look, I want to see, if you want to really do scientific evidence, you want to really convince me with a scientific evidence, then do it the proper way with proper control sets. Control set 1. LGBTQ group feels discriminated against, so therefore it harms their psychology. Okay, I'm willing to concede.
That wouldn't be it precisely. It's much worse.
Okay, but I'm willing to concede that. Okay. But show me the counter data for all of the other people which have to deal with that and what their psychology is like. Do you have any of that? No.
Tell me what they have to deal with. What does that mean?
It means that the idea of you attacking, like, let's say, for instance, you were fundamental Muslims, right? Like a core part of your belief is like that homosexuals have to be executed, let's say. Like, let's just say that that's the core part of your belief.
Like Islam.
Are you saying that necessarily if people came in and said, no, you have to deal with this now, right? We're calling ourselves Muslims and we wrap ourselves in like a rainbow shroud, right? And march around in the streets and things like this. Are you saying that that's not going to psychologically upset all of the fundamentalists? Of course it is. So when we're talking about the demonstration of harm, the same thing would apply here with fundamentalist Christians. You need to show me that it's not harmful to me when I say, wait,
it's not
based on my faith and based on my truth, you're not allowed to be gay and a Christian. And for you to claim that you are, it hurts me psychologically.
You've already
It's like can you be a meat-eating vegan?
conceded that it's not harmful. You said the Eastern Orthodox Church is happy to have gay people in the congregation, so clearly it's not harming anyone.
Not as acting homosexuals, but to treat them. To treat them.
How do you know? Do you kick out people who masturbate? Are they allowed to participate?
No, they're there to be treated for masturbation, or they're there to be treated for these things.
How do you know if they're masturbating?
Confession is for.
Okay.
Yeah, the idea is that you have to take them. The idea is that they're telling you these things, these spiritual struggles that they have, so that you can assist with those struggles. That's what the whole point of it is. And so the thing is like, that's the only way you could ever do anything, by the way. Right. So they let you know what the sins are that they're experiencing struggles with. Your spiritual father, in this case, your priest, his entire job and that of the church as a congregation is to assist you with not just this, not just with sin, but in all aspects of life, to assist you if you're in financial straits, to assist you if you're having marital issues, to assist you for all sorts of things, because there's the community aspect which goes with the spiritual aspect. So here's the question. The question becomes like, if you want to uproot that, if you want to uproot those fundamental beliefs, it would be impossible, I think, for you to demonstrate that would not be harmful to the people whose beliefs you're uprooting.
I think the degree of harm is different.
Yeah, like how could you not say that wouldn't be harmful from that precept? If I wanted to say, hey, these people have been following this religion for thousands of years, and it's they're dug in. This is they're fundamentalist. I'm going to go in there and change everything for my own personal reasons. That could be considered harmful. He's not getting it
here, and I do think that there is, of course, psychological data. I'm sure would support that forcing anybody to believe one thing or another thing through some means of force is going to be harmful. But I do think it's objective in any situation, whether it's homosexuality or
nobody's using force against LGBTQ people.
Sure, they are.
They're not using force to reject them from the church.
Yes, they are.
What force is being used?
Have you seen Steven Anderson down in Arizona? Have you seen?
Yeah, what force is he using? What force is he using?
He's literally talking about getting guns, lining them up, and shooting them. So that sounds like force.
Yeah. So wait a second. So you can't say that if you have somebody who is utilizing a rhetoric against the laws of the land, right? That this is a reflection of mainstream Christianity. It most certainly is not. That's one. And two, but two, the thing is like even you saying him talking about this, right? Him talking about this, that is not actually the use of force. Same thing. If you say, well, wait a second, we're not forcing you to accept us. We're just petitioning that you do. Okay, we're not forcing you out. We're just not including you. What force are we using?
To your point, I'll concede to you that I don't think all situations of exclusion are force, but I do think when you're a young person sitting under the teaching week after week, or in a family week after week, where you're being told that this part of you, which you believe is innate, that you did not choose and you cannot change, is fundamentally broken, flawed, and if you take the Bible literally, worthy of death.
Okay, help me here, because I'm not a gay man, right? But what harm would it cause for let's say you're a gay man, for you to say, you know what? I'm never going to stick my penis in another man's rectum. How harmful would that be for a gay man to say, you know what? I'm going to put my foot down and I'm never going to do that. How would it harm you?
Yes. That is going to have psychological impact. And I do believe there are ample studies that show that.
Sure, there'll be psychological impact the other direction too. If you say you have to accept, so all you're talking about is a mind state of feelings. right? Which is a thing
it goes deeper than that. It goes
is a
deeper than that.
thing that you are in control of, is your mind state. And so the thing is, when you say, wait a second, this is harmful because you won't include. Okay, well, it's harmful if I can't exclude based on what my priority values are. So for instance, if you said that I have to accept, I don't know, like a kid diddler next door, right? You have to accept that, Andrew, right? And I'm not drawing the comparison saying homosexuals are kid diddlers. It's not what the point was before you go there. I'm sure you've heard that a million times, right? Though we could get into it, but the point is that if there was, right, and you say, well, you have to accept it. No, I don't. Why do I have to accept it? No, I don't have to accept it. They can fuck right off. I don't have to accept it at all. They can kiss my ass and screw off, right? I don't have to accept that. Why should I? And if you say I do have to, how could you then not make the same claim? It's the same thing. It's the same type of psychological harm, same kind of psychological harm that you're experiencing. But yeah, so then this is the thing, right? Yeah. So what you're talking about is freedom of association here.
Okay. So, I mean, at the end of this,
just quickly, fellas, we're going to wrap this up in a minute. So last little bit here, and then we're going to get into supers. I know, Brandon, you've got it hard out at 8 o'clock. So yeah, we'll just wrap this up after a few minutes.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of going towards closing statement, but it does seem like, and I think you've pointed this out, that we have two fundamental, very different starting points and assumptions. I know you believe that my worldview is inconsistent because I rely so heavily on subjective knowledge and what I would call faith. But because we don't have the same authorities, it's impossible to come to any sort of agreement on almost any of these issues. And
yeah, but that's where you fail, though. You see, because there is no normative authority for which we can appeal to, and you don't even think that there is one which is possible.
I do believe
you don't.
There is.
Okay, what is it?
God.
Okay, God. Okay, so we're both appealing to God. I say I have divine revelation from God that LGBTQ people cannot be a part of the church. You make the counterclaim. I have divine revelation from God that they can be, right? Who do we go with here?
Yeah, who's
you have to
the
use
one?
logic, reason, my spiel.
All right. So the normative authority can't be appealed to if there's disagreement based on the normative authority. So there isn't one. So ultimately, if we have to appeal to reason and logic and all these other things, that's fine. But I've given you plenty of logical reasons why there is no unfairness. I've given you the same logical reason back as to the harm principle and why that doesn't make any sense in this context, because everything that you claim is harmful from being excluded. I can make the counterclaim. I'm being harmed by not being allowed to exclude, thus curtailing my freedom of association. So the thing is like all of these claims that you make, you don't really have a good grounding to make any type of rejection to me, except because really your whole worldview reduces to my preference. My preference, Andrew, is that you accept me. And I'm like, well, my preference is that I don't. And so if all that's going to end up coming down to is consensus and force doctrine, ultimately, like what else can it come down to?
Yeah. And I would argue, I think that this kind of very put together objective sense of worldview that you have based on all of the philosophical arguments you're making is, again, it's just a constructed worldview. It has no objective basis in reality either. I think we're all functioning from the same place because
I'm willing to grant it. I'm just willing to grant the entire thing because it just doesn't hurt or refute in any way that LGBTQ shouldn't or should be in the church. All you're saying ultimately is me, Brandan Robertson, has a set of preferences which are subjectively informed by other things that I can't even make the claim are true. Because of those things, I want you to accept me. Okay, I'll do the same appeal. Andrew Wilson, don't have any objective basis for truth and use logic and reason and came to a totally different conclusion than you did based on those subjective things. Why is Andrew wrong? Brandon says, well, he's not. Okay, well, Andrew, why is Brandon wrong? I say, okay, well, he's not. So this reduces to a force value. It always reduces to a force value ultimately. So I say, okay, well, no, I'm just not going to associate, and neither is the church, and we're going to widely condemn this. You don't really have any metric for which to say that's wrong. You don't really have one.
And I do agree that at the end of the day, we're going to see who wins this argument. And I do think that our side, because it's on the side of God and truth, is going to win at the end of the day.
Well, is it on the side of truth?
That is a very, very good place to wrap up and to get into closing statements. So, Brandon, you opened before. So, Andrew, you can open with your closing statements now. We'll say probably won't need more than 2 or 3 minutes. So
that way he gets the last word. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, cool.
because he did open first. So look at that, Jake running a debate the proper way. I was robbed of my last word in the previous debate. I was pretty upset about that. But I mean, to be fair, the only way to be really fair is if you're the opener, you get to have the last. I think that's fair. So first and foremost, I did enjoy the debate. There was some blood sports in there, but I think it was good for Brandan to hear a lot of that. So here's the thing: his entire worldview reduced when you reduce it right down to its base. You can just agree with it. You don't even have to disagree because there's no way for him to make an objection other than from the perspective of preference. And if that's the case, then he has no real grounds for which to attack your preferences back. So if it's just a reduction to preference, my preference versus your preference, then we just get down to the
and that's what he doesn't understand. There's something way deeper with this. It's so like surface level because again, it's all subjectivity. As soon as he said that, you know, the Bible might not be true. I don't believe everything in it. Paul was wrong about this, but he was right about that. This is all about preferences. And if that's all this is just preference versus preference, then why are we even watching this debate? At least Andrew Wilson is coming from a more objective, fundamental belief system, and this guy's just appealing to his own preference. And he doesn't understand it.
Consensus of the majority and force doctrine every single time. So this would mean that if I can convince enough people that Brandan and LGBTQ should stay out of churches, his only objection there is like, well, I just don't prefer that that's true, or I just don't prefer that happened. And it's like, well, so what? I prefer that it does happen. Yeah. And this you'll find reduced in Christian nationalism versus this worldview. You found that he agrees with all the tenets of Satanism, and all of the tenets of Satanism also reduced to this, right? No matter what, you can always reduce this worldview down to its actual absurdity, because the absurdity is just preference. When he says, I want to make an appeal to the Bible, well, he can't make an appeal to the Bible because he doesn't know if it's true. He said, I want to appeal to psychology, but I can't defend any of its principles or values. I want to appeal to science, but I don't even know the scientific method. I want to appeal to all of these different things, but can't make a statement they're true, don't know anything about them, don't even understand why I follow them. And then he says it's due to faith. Okay, great. Faith is a wonderful thing. I don't dispute this or disagree with this in any way. The problem is that when you have such a low value epistemic foundation for faith, there's no justification even for having faith. That just becomes another set value of preferences again. So it's like, why should I even give a shit if he has faith? I shouldn't, right? I shouldn't even care because there's no real set value there for him. It's not even true. Like his faith, by his own admission, might not even be true. And the Bible, probably not true, or maybe true, but at least a lot of it isn't true. Like Exodus, that's not true. Genesis, that's not true. What Paul says, a lot of that's not true.
Yeah, and all the meat, and that's the difference. This is milk to meat. To be a real Christian, you're going to have to accept the things that offend your delicate sensibilities. That's really what it is. You know what I mean? I don't like certain things that Paul said. I wonder why.
True. It's only true in the sense of good storytelling, but like materially true, there's no material truths there whatsoever. So everything he appeals to, he claims is false, and you can't know the truth of it. He doesn't know the methodologies behind the very things he appeals to, which is fucking insane. He makes category errors based around human sexuality. He claims are immutable. People could never have understood them, even though they were immutable and engaged in them all the time. And then what he does is he kind of inserts this loaded language of, due to psychoanalysis and modern psychology, we're able to give descriptive terms they didn't have before. Are those terms true, though? Well, no, we can't even know the truth of those terms. And from the psychological perspective, I would say in the study of the mind, I could make counterclaims on these all day long, and they would be just as true as his, because you can't demonstrate them scientifically. You cannot demonstrate a claim of the mind scientifically. Science doesn't even try because you can't make controls for it. They can't do it. So ultimately, the whole thing reduces to this. And I'm just going to be blunt with this. Mr. Robertson is not a Christian. It's not possible. He can't even make an appeal to Christianity because he doesn't even believe in it. Okay? Or the truth.
He's not. That's the point. He's not. I mean, again, because he doesn't, the word Christian, it's a descriptor. To be a Christian, you have to go with the description of what a Christian is. And if you don't, check the boxes of that description, then you're probably not a Christian. And that's like, yeah, what makes you a Christian?
Truth of it. He also can't appeal to psychology, can't appeal to medicine, he can't really appeal to anything. He doesn't even understand the basic foundations of any of these things. So as he's going through his worldview, the whole thing just reduces to this, ultimately. I believe, Andrew, that there is harm in the exclusion of gay sex from the church.
That's all it's about.
That's what it reduced to. He agreed,
That's all it is.
right?
Yeah.
That it had to reduce to that. Okay. And I say, well, I don't think there is. Then the burden falls upon you to make the demonstration that it is. And Brandan never, ever made it. He never, ever made the demonstration. So I gave him ample opportunities, right? And while I enjoyed, you really need to think about this, bro, because you really are just reducing your worldview to my preferences. And so you have no way to make a claim of justification against somebody else's preferences, including if they enslave you, if they rape, if they do horrible things to you. You have no grounding foundation from which to object.
Yeah.
Because it's just
And
their
why that'd be
preferences
wrong.
versus yours. And he who has the force wins. So I'll leave it at that. I did appreciate the spirited debate.
And just before we get into your closing, Brandan, we are going to be taking callers after this, after we read a few super chats. We've already got some down there. We have also got a poll on this.
Not to an objective proof that God or any of the theological claims are true. But most of all, I'm just grateful that this was a spirited and good debate. So thank you both for having me.
Okay. I think we got the gist. We got the gist of what these guys are talking about. Let's see. Yeah, we got the gist of what was going on there. I hope you guys got to kind of understand that even coming to the debate by even claiming you're an LGBTQ or a gay pastor already puts you at a major disadvantage, because the descriptor of a Christian, it doesn't align. So what I'm going to do is I got one more small video for us to watch. I think that you'll be interested in I think you're going to be interested in what this has to say as well.
Promoted.
What specifically do you mean by degeneracy?
I would say degeneracy means without morals.
Okay, and these were these like little small 5-minute debates that Andrew Wilson did with multiple people on Modern Day Debate. And this is really interesting because the guy doesn't have an argument. He hasn't kind of tested his own logic.
So I would say things which are sexually deviant, for instance, I would hold to a biblical standard for sexual deviances, theft, activities like this.
Okay. Do you feel like you have to actually justify your biblical stance on this, though? Or
No.
can you? No?
No.
Because obviously what you're describing, I don't think to be immoral. So like sexuality, for example, I think is a completely amoral topic. So how do we resolve this if you think degeneracy shouldn't be promoted?
The same way that an atheist would resolve anything with force.
Or, I mean, based on our earlier conversation, you could consider this force, right?
I don't consider this force.
Okay, well, do you not think we can resolve situations this way?
Yes, but I think ultimately if we can't resolve a situation this way, it ends up going to force.
So specifically with the Bible, right? Because that's where you're getting your morals from, and we're trying to figure this out together here.
Well, here, let's make it easy.
Okay.
I'll make it easier for you. Let's say the Bible for a second is not true.
Okay.
Okay? It's a complete
It's a good way to start it, especially when you're debating people that don't believe in the Bible.
lie. Everything in it's a lie. God's not real, blah, 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 blah. But society is adhering to a standard for sexual morality. I think that even from an atheist worldview, the standard and benefits to society would still be so much better that they should still adhere to an anti-degeneracy policy.
So it's less about the morals and it's more about the effects for you?
It would be more about the effects for an atheist. So
Yeah,
maybe
for
I
you,
could.
for you. So when you're arguing against, people that aren't Christian and they're just trying, you want to argue from like more of a secular utilitarian argument, and because that's what they're going to hear a lot more than being like, well, because it says so in the Bible.
Convince you that way.
Okay, well, let's move into the effect. Like, what's the problem with, like, sexual immorality, for
Do you
example.
think
Pick
that-
anything you
Yeah.
want.
Do you think that 30 men should be able to get married and adopt children?
It's a tough situation.
That's a tough situation.
Can't
Well, I
answer.
mean, specifically what I mean by that is, and as I alluded to earlier, I don't think that family structures are what matter. I think parenting styles are what matter.
Yes.
So I have a hard time imagining
So 30 gay dudes
men
get married and adopt.
I kind of agree with you, but I don't want to just say like I agree.
Yeah,
and then
but
that's
why
it,
would
right?
you agree?
Because I don't imagine that 30.
I thought it was
men,
amoral.
Well, no. So parenting is different. So we're talking about a parenting situation.
Why is
now.
parenting different? Why wouldn't that be amoral? Like whatever parent structure you
because
have
we have to
should be
look at
fine.
what's in the moral sphere, right? So personal sexuality,
Yeah.
that is not in the moral sphere. That's not something that has any effect on other people. Parenting,
I
we
see.
have
Hang on. So just real quick then. If two twin brothers wanted to have sex with each other, you would have no issue with that.
Woo-wee. It's a good argument.
No, I would.
Why?
I thought it was amoral.
Well, okay. Let's try to get back on the point. Just because
That is the point.
No,
that's the
specifically
point.
because I'm in a.
You notice that? You notice that? He tried to get. Let's get back to the point because he had no rebuttal.
So I'm an emotivist, right? So when I say I don't like something,
Yeah.
I'm not saying like this is objectively right or wrong. It's just like I don't like that, right? So like incest, necrophilia, any of the things that you usually like to mention, right? Like I don't have an objective standard by which I can say this is wrong, but as an emotivist, I can still say it's wrong.
Isn't that interesting? He has no objective standard to say that incest is wrong.
Because these are all arbitrary. right?
Okay. So it's wrong, right? Should we allow it though?
So specifically, like the twin sibling situation, is
Yeah.
that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
I would probably say no.
Yeah.
Why?
Because it doesn't make society better, right?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, because that's a form of degeneracy.
But that's not really relevant to what we're talking about.
It
Here.
is really-
We're talking about like homosexuality here, right? That's really what we're talking
yeah,
about. when we
but
talk about
how does
sexual
that make
identity.
society better?
Well, it's because there's
And that's that question that can never be answered when I ask, how does it make it better? How does it make society better?
how does it make it worse?
Well,
Let's go with
it's
that.
the same
Yeah,
thing as the
you
twin
tell you how to
brothers,
make it
right?
worse.
If
Well, I
love is love, and it's just all about who you love, and you're not hurting nobody, how could you object to the twin brothers?
Let me know down below if you agree with Andrew Wilson that the twin brothers scenario is basically the same as homosexuality, as it were. I mean, Andrew Wilson raises a point in that, hey, for years,
Ethically.
Ethically,
if you're enjoying the video, and let's get back in.
Well, I mean, like legally or ethically?
ethically,
Yeah, I mean, again, I can't.
and okay,
I can't.
legally, whatever your legal objection would be to that would be the same one I'd have to homosexuality.
I mean, legal objection would be kind of complicated, but
It's not complicated; it's illegal now.
well, yeah,
is
but I
legal.
mean, no, I see what you're saying. And
Yeah.
it's a good point, and it's
Yeah.
complicated, but I also don't think
not
this is a very
complicated.
pragmatic conversation.
I think it's the most pragmatic
Yeah, it
conversation
is.
because the idea here is I'm saying society it seems to be better by at least you're my standard, right? I think whatever it is that we share for a standard of better, I would guess would be things like effects, results, right? People feeling better, doing better, right? Things like this,
but-
something
but
arbitrary
maximizing
like that.
well-being, and that means you do have to factor in the individual, but you have to factor in the other people.
And you have to factor in the whole society, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And
so if that's the case, then
and so I don't-
Yeah, when you're talking about two homosexual brothers, they can't reproduce. And if love is love, and it's all about love is love,
Why not?
then how could you tell them that they're doing something wrong, but not homosexuals?
again, I see what you're saying, and admittedly, with okay, well, there's the time.
Oh,
That sucks.
yeah, that does suck. All right,
Yeah, there's no like again, and what we're trying to blow up on this platform, like what I'm trying to push the most is you can disagree all day. So a disagreement without a refutation should be completely disregarded, and that's how I want people to start, especially men, maneuver around your life. People can disagree, that's fine, but until somebody refutes what you're saying, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. If you can't refute what I'm saying, then it does not matter. Fully disregarded, and that's perfectly fine. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure to check me out. Make sure to hit the notification bell and subscribe and do all that. And until next time, I'll see you soon.
Let's keep it off the books. Not a secret. It's off the books. Joey Jugs.